Stillman and Company is presented by TriStar Moving Company, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. I am Caroline Fenton, joined by the one, the only, former wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans, Chris Sanders.
Superstar, how you doing?
How we doing? I'm doing great. How you doing?
Doing good. But when you say former, it makes me sound like I'm old and
Forever
on crutches.
Titans
Forever, there
wide
we
receiver.
go.
Forever Titans wide receiver. And apparently a Jacksonville Jaguars Hall of Famer.
That's so bad. You know, Jared gave me some riff about that because I was.
Oh well, you know who texted me about that this morning?
Jared, man, come on, this guy, man. I mean, what it is I got cut from the Tennessee Titans and I went and visit them and they gave me a free jersey. So if you're gonna give me something free, I'm definitely gonna keep it. So
well, of course.
Oh, that's a gimme. I mean, I know I shouldn't have put it up on the wall, but when it has 81 and Sanders, that's just so pretty. I mean, you got to keep it on there.
It is pretty good looking. I mean, if someone gave me a jersey with my name on it, I don't care what team it is. It's framed. It's going up on my wall. So Jared, cut the guy a break.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that we did all that riff-raff, gave me a jersey, gave me a helmet, and gave me all these things, and didn't sign me. So, I mean, what are we doing?
Joke's on them. You got some wall decor out of it. Don't even bother. And Urban Meyer and the Jags just got fined $300,000.
Did they? What happened?
The team got fined $200,000. Urban Meyer got fined $100,000.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
OTA violations.
He just got in the league.
You're better off without him. You're better off without him.
But, man, maybe that's why he left the Ohio State University. I don't know, he's in that. He's not going to get me in trouble, man.
Well, speaking of
Yes.
Urban Meyer and the Ohio State University, things are going to start to shake up in college football a little bit. NCAA athletes are now able to profit off of their name, image, and likeness, something that has been such a taboo, hot-button issue in all of college sports, especially college football, since forever, it feels like. So with all of these new name, image, and likeness changes comes a whole new set of expectations, a whole new set of rules, a whole new set of precedents that are going to be set in the NCAA. Your initial reaction whenever you heard the news about NIL?
You know, the good thing about it is we've been making money off the athletes. That's the good thing about it is. But now when the bad things start coming out, when we start dealing with parents, you start dealing with all these situations, you got agents, you got things that you have to deal with, the bad side about it, it can get real ugly quick. And you just don't want it to get ugly quick because we want it to be about the player. And when it starts getting away from the player, that's when a lot of things happen. You got agents, you got, say a kid comes from a situation to where his lifestyle to where he didn't get meals or get food or didn't have clothes, and all of a sudden he gets into a lot of money. There's going to be people that's going to be after his money as opposed to going to the school for tradition or wanting to play football.
That's true. And, it is such a great thing for athletes because they finally get to put money in their pockets after years and years of their name, image, and likeness putting money in the pockets of others. I mean, how many people in college football, at universities, in college sports in general, make money off of these kids because of their performances, because of the brands that they have built for themselves, and they haven't been able to profit off of it. I mean, you look at so many athletes. I mean, you look at Tim Tebow, for example. He could have made a killing in college because he built a brand for himself in college, and other people benefited from it. So it's wonderful. It's a wonderful opportunity for college athletes to finally be able to build their brands themselves. But it also does more money, more problems.
Yeah, but you got to come with a strategy.
Exactly.
There's got to be a strategy. You can't just say, here, you take the money. It's kind of like this. If you just have a newborn baby, you're not going to give them a steak because they're not ready to eat that. They got to ease into it. You got to feed them milk. You got to give them, all that stuff their mom gives them. But you don't just right off the cuff just give them a steak because they can't eat it. And that's the same thing with these kids. All of a sudden you have a kid that comes from a situation where it's tough. Then all of a sudden he's getting $2 million. And nobody's told him how to plan. Nobody's told him how to have a strategy. Nobody told him how to invest. Nobody told him all these things. Then he goes out and buy cars. He goes out and buy houses and all these things. And you look up when he graduates, he's broke. So there's got to be a strategy. He's got to have people in your life that's not trying to benefit from the football player, but to make sure that they're set up for life after football. And I think that's where it can be a good and it can be a bad thing about it.
And I think that is going to add a ton of responsibility onto football programs and onto schools in general, dedicating people, dedicating resources, dedicating groups to these athletes and providing them with the financial education that they need in order to not run themselves into the ground, not graduate when you're broke, like you said, and to also be able to benefit as much as they possibly can from the name, image, and likeness that they've been given. Because it's you can't just build a brand.
No.
You know, you can be great on the football field, but if you don't have a social media presence, if you're not able to establish a brand, you aren't going to be able to capitalize on this opportunity like some other athletes would. So not only financial resources, not only financial counseling and support, but also support from marketing and from public relations and saying, hey, you have the opportunity to make so much money. Let me teach you how to do that. Let me teach you how to provide or how to build this foundation for yourself. Spencer Rattler, we saw, Oklahoma quarterback. He already has a logo for himself. It's like his initials with a snake. I know Tennessee football has already had a bunch of summits, a lot of meetings with their athletes saying, here is how you build a social media brand. Here is how you use social media to your advantage. But I think there's also a really scary part to it, too, because they're kids.
They're kids.
They're kids. And whenever you do build a brand and you start to build followers, then the higher the pedestal, the harder the fall.
Yeah.
So, if you go out one night, you do something stupid, you post something stupid.
That's what I'm saying.
The consequences are so much higher. It's not just the effect of, I can't play next week, or I was embarrassed on my social media. It could have hundreds of thousands of dollars of repercussions.
Yeah, and you gotta go back to what's your purpose? What's your purpose of going to a college? What's your purpose to go to Alabama, Ohio State, Arizona, all these colleges? Because if your purpose is just to make money, what happens if you get hurt?
That's true.
I mean, what happens? I mean, because I think the one thing that we're going to lose, and I hate to say this, is you're going to find a lot of kids are going to go to college to get money as opposed to the love for the game. I mean, when we played, when I was young in high school, we didn't even have water. We had salt tablets because we just loved the game. We loved playing. We loved being on the field. We loved 2-a-days. We loved 3-a-days. We loved all these things. I think the problem, what we're going to find out, or we're going to see, is a lot of kids are going to go to college because of money. Just imagine, check this out now. You're a 5-star. And Alabama says, I'm going to give you $20,000. And then MTSU says, I'm going to give you 1.5. Where do you think that kid's going to go?
MTSU.
They're going to
all day.
Because now the focus is about getting the money as opposed to winning a national championship. So we got to make sure that we educate these kids on what's your purpose? What's your game plan? What do you want to do life after football? And I hate to say this. And, I'm going to put my life out there and I'm going to open myself up. But when I retired from the NFL, I wasn't ready. Because nobody taught me how to do a budget. Nobody taught me how to refinance my house. Nobody taught me how to do these things. So I had to learn. And I'm like 36, 37 years old and learning how to do these things. But just imagine a kid that's in college. And everybody's just telling them about, you can buy this and buy that, but they're not teaching them the fundamentals of how to run your money. And those are the things we're gonna lose. We're gonna lose the essence of it. We're gonna lose the pureness of it. We're gonna lose the love of it. That's the bad part about it. But the good part about it is kids are getting compensated.
Now, you are a counselor, a mentor to a lot of high school athletes, so you probably will be dealing with something like this in the future and kind of guiding these kids who could be going and playing college football at the next level. Put yourself in that situation. What do you tell a potential college athlete?
We've been saying this, and we've been hearing this on Facebook. We've been hearing it on Instagram, and we've been hearing this. It's this quote that we say, what's your why? We need to ask these kids, what's your why? And have them write their vision down. Write their vision. Okay, why do I want to play football? Why do I want to do these things? And then there's going to be situations that their why can be, I want to take care of my family. My why can be, I want to win a championship. But if you write your why down and you have somebody to back you up, to coach you up, then now you can make sure you make the right decisions. I'm going to come and give you an illustration. I remember when I was playing football as a young kid. I looked gross in my uniform. I was just not cute and everything. But when I first signed up, they asked me this. They said, what position do you want to play? And I said, wide receiver. And the first thing they did is they put me with a coach, and he taught me the fundamentals of playing football. He taught me the fundamentals of playing wide receiver. He taught me the fundamentals of catching the ball. Now, check this out. If I would have signed up and they never would have put me with a coach, I would have got in the game and I wouldn't know what to do. And that's exactly what's going to be with these kids, is they're going to get in the game and they're going to get all this money, but there's nobody going to tell them what to do with the money. So now, you're going to see a lot of problems. You're going to see a lot of kids have a lot of money, but there's no purpose. There's no vision. So if you give a kid with a vision and purpose, then now they can look beyond playing football and set up for the rest of their life.
That is true. And I think one thing that we think about so much with this name, image, and likeness is what happens after they get the money. Who is going to guide them? Who's going to help them through this financially? But you have to think about it before all of that happens.
That's a great
Who
point.
is going to guide you through partnering with these brands? Who is going to keep you on the straight and narrow? And it's not just after the fact, it's an entire process. And now that it's going to be such an integral part of recruiting and being a college athlete, you need someone to guide you from the very start and all the way through. And I think that's going to be a big challenge for college football programs, and that's going to be a big recruiting thing. Is, if I'm a mother of a potential college athlete, I want to make sure that I'm sending my athlete, my child, to a place that they're going to be set up for success. And I think that the schools that are going to be the first ones that are on it, Tennessee, for example, LSU, they have been very vocal that their arms are wide open to accepting these name, image, and likeness opportunities, but they're not going to put their athletes in a position to fail. And I think that that's going to be a huge aspect for recruiting moving forward as well.
And you know what it's going to be like, and I know this is a vivid picture, I know it's a graphic picture, but I'm going to say it anyway. But like on the side of the road, you're driving on the highway, right? And you see, like, I hate to say this, a carcass on the highway. Have you noticed that the vultures are up there flying around? That's what you're going to see.
Yep.
You're going to see a lot of agents. You're going to see a lot of family members see this kid that has no life and try to take every life out of them because they make it about them. And it's not about them. And I think you got to surround yourself with people that have the purpose of helping you, not to take. And you're going to start seeing a lot of it because, I remember watching, I think it was about 4 years ago, they were showing a situation on ESPN where these, this kid had all the hats out there and he was going to pick a school where he wanted to go to. So I think he picked Florida and he put the hat on. The mom got up and left and said, I don't want him to go to Florida. I want him to go to Alabama. See, the thing about it is she made it about him. Made it about her as opposed to making it about the kid. So that's the same thing about with these finances. When you have people in your life, they can't make it about them. Oh, I got to get me a house. I got to get me a car. I got to get this. It ain't about you. It's about setting this kid up for life. This is about making sure that this kid fulfills his purpose, about making sure that when this kid writes his vision down, you help him to fulfill it. But you're going to see a lot of people taking advantage of these kids.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Get your calls, get your texts in. We're talking about name, image, and likeness. It's going to be really a wonderful opportunity for these college athletes to finally profit off of the brands that they've built for themselves. But it also introduces a whole new set of potential issues and problems. You are listening to Stillman and Company. I am Caroline Fenton, joined by the one and only Chris Sanders, forever Titans wide receiver. We are live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and the Game Nashville app.
What?
is this going to create a division in the locker room if one player is getting a bigger deal than another player?
Caroline, I think absolutely. I played 12 years in the NFL. Everybody knows that's a professional league where you are paid what the market will bear for your services, and yet there was still, among grown men, envy in discrepancies in pay, especially if you've got a guy that signed a huge contract who's not performing well, and you've got a guy who doesn't have a big contract who moved into that other person's starting position, and that guy is getting, great accolades. He's playing well and making half what the guy he beat out was. That makes people mad. And it'll happen in college as well because you don't have as much maturity. And there will also be a bigger discrepancy because in today's NFL locker room, even the lowest paid guys have a lot of money. I mean, they're not starving to death. But in college, you'll have some guys driving the Ferrari. You'll have other guys that don't get offers of any kind, or maybe some token offer from a small company just to keep them from transferring, and that's it. And if you have some of those guys that are not participating to their satisfaction in the cash flow that name, image, and likeness is thought to bring, you're going to have guys upset, and you'll see them in the transfer portal really quick. So this is something the coaches are going to have to manage.
That was Trevor Maddich. We had him on the show earlier talking about name, image, and likeness. And Chris and I mentioned last segment that it's a wonderful opportunity for these college athletes to finally be able to put a little bit of money in their pockets after they've been putting money in the pockets of so many others. But it introduces so many new issues. And one that Chris and I had been discussing is a possible division in the locker room. If your starting quarterback is getting X number of sponsorships, what happens to that third string wide receiver who may not be getting anything?
Yeah. I went to the Ohio State University, and there's a lot of competition. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I was a part of it too, and I'm not afraid to say this. If I saw, this is when I was selfish, but when if I saw Joey or somebody else catching a lot of balls, I would get upset. I'm like, man, I'm 17, can catch the ball too. But just imagine adding another element to that. Okay, Joey's making $5 and I'm making $2 million. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm going to be upset. That's just the nature of the beast. And that's how I was. I'm not like that now. But you adding an element of money. Say you got a kid that walks on, and he makes the team, and then he earns a scholarship, but he doesn't get any sponsorship. But then you got a quarterback that's mediocre, and he's getting a big scholarship. So, you're going to have to create a locker room of walking together, even though people may get this different things.
And, of course, that already exists in professional sports. It exists in NFL locker rooms. And I'm sure it is something that, on the professional side, coaches and players alike have to overcome. But you have to think about it, too. When you're in the NFL, you've been around. You're a little bit older. You have older mentors, and you have resources to be able to guide you and with being a millionaire. When you're 18 years old and you're coming into college, you're there because you're competitive. You're not going to be a college athlete because you're not competitive. So having a locker room full of people with competitive edges, and then you add in this extra element of money, and then you may go out on the field and say, he may be your target, but I'm going to come swoop in and grab the ball because I know I have a payday waiting for me at the end of the day. So it could create an issue not just in the locker room but in the field as well.
But see, the thing about it is we talked about it earlier that a kid's going to get mad and say, I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. And then you add another element to that to where if I don't like the coach, I don't like how much I'm getting, I'm going to another school and get more money. So you make it about not sticking to the process. You made it about, okay, I can do better over here because they're giving me more money. And that's the problem. And listen, I'm not making it all bad. It's not all bad. It's good because kids are getting money. But I think that we got to make sure that we educate these kids on how to do it the right way. And in my opinion, I think the one solution we could do is the guys that get the sponsorship, the guys that get the money, whoever gets the money, put it in a trust fund to where they get it when they graduate or they go to the NFL. So now it doesn't cause any riffraff to say, you know what, the kids may not see the money now, but when they leave college to go to the pros, then they get it. So nobody really sees it.
And you mentioned transferring, and I think that transferring is going to be a whole new beast because introducing the transfer portal into college football has already shaken things upside down. I mean, you look at the past Heisman winners over the past few years. None of them won their Heisman with the initial team that they committed with. You look at Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, that's true.
You look at Joe Burrow. all of these players who find a lot of success after transferring. So transferring is nothing new. But whenever you add the element of money, you could see a player transfer who maybe normally wouldn't because there's a payday waiting. But Trevor and I talked a bit about this on Wednesday. But I think you could possibly see a player who, let's say he got beat out for the starting quarterback position. Typically, you could see that person entering the transfer portal and starting elsewhere. But you now in this whole name, image, and likeness era, you could see them staying when they normally would have transferred because they have a local business in their college town that's giving them a big check. So they may say, hey, I have a payday here. I may not be the starting quarterback. I probably will next year. So I'm going to stay and collect my check. It's a totally new aspect to things.
But you know we're going to miss out on is developing the kid. I mean, it's like when I was in college, I couldn't opt out and go to another school. I went through trials and tribulations. I had to sit up my first year. My second year, you know, I played the first game. I hurt my knee. And then the third year, you know, I had an okay season. I didn't even have a touchdown yet. Then my senior year, they start a junior in front of me because I ran track and they wanted me to do spring ball. So they started a junior in front of me. So what if I didn't go through the process of understanding how to overcome adversity? We're limiting these kids to say, okay, if I get my feelings hurt, I can leave. That's I'm telling you, that's how our society is. If I get my feelings hurt, I'm leaving. Instead of these kids fighting through the adversity. So now when they get in life and their marriage is hard or you know their job is hard, they can fight through adversity. We're forgetting about the developmental part of the kid, and that's what's going to hurt our game because you know, say if I'm second on the depth chart, I'm coming in as a 5-star, and you know my whole high school career I've been the man. I've been the guy. I mean I'm catching 80 balls a year and I'm the top dog. Now I go to The Ohio State University and they got me third on the depth chart.
Every other guy was a hot rod in high school, too.
Exactly. So then he gets his feelings hurt. He's going to talk to his parents. He's going to talk to people that's going to tell him what he wanted to say. Okay, well, you know, you can just opt out because they're giving you more money. Then you miss out on the development on the kid.
Which is exactly why a lot of kids start playing sports in the first place, is learning those lessons, learning about sportsmanship and overcoming adversity and being challenged and overcoming that. So you may lose sight of that.
Yeah, and that's because we're focusing so much on, which is, and I want everybody to understand, I'm being careful what I'm saying. It's still a good thing.
Oh, absolutely.
But we got to make sure we're doing it the right way. We got to make sure that it's about the kid, developing the kid and making sure that they have the tools, not just to win in football, but have the tools to win in life, to how to handle money, to how to say no and how to invest in all these things, not just to say, okay, I'm giving you $2 million, do what you want to do with it. We're doing these kids a disservice. It's kind of like this. If I had a child and I just had them, I have to teach them to say their ABCs. They don't just come out saying their ABCs. They have to be taught. So now when they say their ABCs, then they can learn more and more and be better in life. That's the same thing with these college kids. We need to teach them so now when they get older, they can win in life.
Exactly. And we'll go to your phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Get your thoughts in for us. And Joey from Gallatin texts in and says, I wonder if there will be any forgiveness given to the players who were punished in the past. Reggie Bush had his Heisman taken away because his mother was gifted a car when he was in school. That's another thing is, do we look back on past offenders who did things that are now okay under the NCAA? Do we look back at them and give them a free pass? Because at the time it wasn't allowed, but now, you know, Reggie Bush, if he was playing in college right now, he could go sign autographs and make money. His mom could get a car. It's not a big deal now. So do we look back and say, here's your Heisman, Reggie?
Yeah, but what do you do about a coach like Jim Tressel who lost his job? I mean, what do you do about that? You can give, you know, Heisman trophies back, but you can't get your job back.
That's true.
So there's so many elements to where you can say, I'm sorry. We can say sorry all day long. I just think that from this day on, they got to make sure everything is right. I mean, and you got to start with, okay, this is concrete. This is exactly what we're doing, and we can't change it, as opposed to going back and trying to fix everything. Because the thing about it is, you can't make everybody happy.
Nope. You can't make things right.
You can't make everybody happy. And if you try to make everybody happy, there's going to be somebody else that's going to be mad at you. So they just got to start from ground zero and do it the right way. If they do it the right way and everybody adjusts to it, it can be a great thing, but we don't want this thing to turn into a bad thing.
Because it really is, at the core of it, it is a good thing. You just got to do your due diligence for these athletes who've worked so hard to get where they are.
No doubt.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And we'll get back into NIL and exactly what that will look like in the future. But there was an athlete today who got some really unfortunate news. So we will dive into that. Sha'Carri Richardson, a USA track and field runner.
Don't make me cry.
I'm sorry.
Don't do it.
I'm sorry, Chris. We'll get some tissues. They're in the bathroom. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman and Company is live on 102.5 The Game. We are streaming on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, and the Game Nashville app. Stillman and Company, we are live from the wholesaling studio, powered by RumbleOn.com. Caroline Fenton, joined by Chris Sanders, filling in for Jared Stillman today. We are at First Horizon Park, where the Nashville Sounds will tee off against the Louisville Bats tonight at 7:05. Chris getting after it over here.
Get my groove on. That's old school. That was in 1980.
So we were getting into all things name, image, and likeness, how it really is at its core a great thing that kids are able to make money off of their own brands, their own name, image, and likenesses. But it introduces a whole new set of issues. And we will go to your phones, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Mike is up next.
All right, how you doing today?
Good.
Good.
All right, you guys doing a great job. My name is Michael Thomas. I used to play basketball for St. Joe's University in Philly back in the late 70s. And
Nice.
I was starting small forward. I've been living in Nashville for a couple of years. But, Chris, you're right, man. A lot of these athletes, I think it's going to hurt them in terms of working on their game. For example, I started my freshman year as a small forward at 6'7", and the next year the coach brought in 6 recruits, and out of the 6 recruits, 4 were forwards, 6'8" and over. So instead of me pouting, I went and worked on my game over the summer, and then I still started my sophomore, junior, and senior year. And you had just said that some of these players, they'll start pouting and they'll want to transfer. And I think later in life, that's going to hurt them when they don't get that job or they don't make the pros, and now they're out in the public. And, you know, the easy way out is no longer there because the world is different. You know, when you get out of college, the world is different. You have to work hard to get a job or do whatever if you're not playing sports. And I think this may hurt some of the men and women athletes out here that, you know, the easy way out no longer work to get into real life. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, thank you for your call, Mike.
That's a great point. I mean, we talk about this in football. I coach football at Montgomery Bell Academy. And our head trainer, Sean Brock, he always says this. He says, embrace the uncomfortable. And a lot of athletes today and a lot of student athletes, they don't embrace the uncomfortable. They want it to be comfortable. So if I'm uncomfortable, I just leave and go somewhere else where it's comfortable. And that's what we're going to lose when we're developing these players is if I get uncomfortable, if I'm second on the depth chart or I'm not automatically starting, then I'm going somewhere else where I can feel comfortable starting because he hit it right on the head. If we don't develop these kids, then they're going to get in life and they're going to be undeveloped. And that's what I'm kind of sad about. That's what we're definitely going to see.
That's what we're going to see, and I think that introduces a new set of issues for college coaches and also NFL down the line. Because you mentioned earlier playing for the love of the game, and I think that's the argument that a lot of people make watching college football or college sports as opposed to professional sports or the NFL, saying, I like college sports or college football so much more because I know that these kids are doing it because they love it. They love the school. They love the tradition. They love the game because they're not getting anything out of it.
Exactly.
They want to eventually play in the NFL. That's their ultimate goal, but they love the game. And so that's kind of taken out of it. And so when you introduce money, when you introduce fame, when you introduce these different aspects of things, how is that going to change college football? How is that going to change college sports? The way we watch them, the way we view them, and the way they're played.
I mean, just look at the NFL. I mean, if I don't like my offensive coordinator, if I don't like my general manager, I can get out of here. And I can pout and hit my head on the table and say, I want out of here. But see, that's what these younger athletes are going to see. They're going to say, okay, if I make enough noise, if I make this and that, and they're paying me more money over here, I can go over there and be comfortable. And then, yeah, you're going to be comfortable, but you're not growing. You're not growing as a man. You're not developing your skill. You're focusing so much on yourself as opposed to making yourself better. And I think that's what we're going to see. You're going to see a lot of kids that come in, and then you're not going to see them in 3 weeks because they're second on the depth chart.
Another thing that I think is going to be difficult is we mentioned how important it is for schools to embrace this, for coaches to say, you know, we are going to help you along the way. But what happens when a player is late to practice?
See, exactly.
Because he was doing a promotion for a local restaurant, for a local car dealership. You know, you told me when you recruited me, Coach, you told me that you were going to support me through this. You told me that I could capitalize on these opportunities. So will we get to a certain point where players start to put their sponsorships before football? Because you can't have sponsorships without football. So is it going to be a rude awakening for some athletes that have to learn that the hard way?
I mean, they're going to have to adjust. And the sad part about it is instead of it being a football team, it becomes a business. I mean, it's going to become a business. Okay, I have my football, but yes, I got to go make money. Yes, I got to do commercials. Yes, I got to do all these things to get my money. So, you know, I mean, let's just break it down like this. How in the heck is Dick Saban going to handle that?
Oh.
Just imagine that. He's grumpy already. So just imagine a kid coming late to a meeting. Okay, say they're playing LSU, and this is for the SEC championship. I'm just saying. And 2 of their kids are late to their meeting. Or 2 of their kids have to miss an airplane because of something.
I'll tell you what, I don't want to be on the receiving end of a Nick Saban wrath.
That's what I'm saying. So what do? If it's about the team, you're going to go with the team. But if it's about you, then you're going to focus on getting your money. So these are the things that we're talking about, but we're just kind of talking about it on the surface. but we're going to have to deal with it because it's going to hit us right in the face. I just can't imagine Nick Saban's face if they're playing the biggest game of their life, or even if they're playing the national championship, and the kid said, "Hey, Nick Saban, I got to go do this because I got to make this money." He might cuss the mascot out.
Ooh, I don't want to be that. I do not envy whoever will be on the receiving end of any sort of wrath.
Yeah.
But I think that is the precedent that a lot of these coaches and programs are going to have to set, and they have a very small window to do so. It is now until the beginning of the season. You tell your recruits, you tell your players, this is what we will tolerate and this is what we will not tolerate. And because they don't want to put themselves in a position where their starting quarterback is late to practice because they were at the car dealership saying, hey, come on down to whatever in Tuscaloosa.
Yep. But then if you have the wrong people in your life, say you have parents that say, you don't have to deal with that. I can get some money somewhere else. See, it's so many things, Caroline.
So many things.
It's because, and I hate to say this, it's going to start to become really selfish because it's like, what can I benefit out of it? What can I do as opposed to playing for the love of the game and making your team better?
Unless you have the right people in your
you have the right
program and in
people.
your life that can kind of set you on that path and say, this is your first priority and everything else comes second. And we'll go back to your phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter checks in and says, don't forget that coaches are also going to be pressured to play athletes that their boosters or their boosters companies are paying. I sure hope that there are college football coaches out there or college coaches out there. This doesn't affect just football. It affects all college athletes. I hope that they know better than to sacrifice their team's success for the bag.
I'm a living testimony of that. Not me personally, but my son went through that. And this wasn't even about money. They were playing a different kid in his position because one of the parents went and talked to him and said, we're going to leave and we're not going to play because CJ was doing better in that position. So what they did, instead of playing him in the slot where he was good at, they put him on the outside on the perimeter, and that wasn't his game. So just imagine when you add money to that. What do you do?
You're going to be faced with a really tough position.
And then now it puts the coach in a bad position because he in his mind he wants to play the kid that's going to help him. But then now it comes down to money.
Mo money, mo problems. Tommy has a question for you,
Yes.
Chris. He says, do you think with all the transferring instead of developing that it will cause a lot of busts in the future in the NFL?
Oh, yeah.
Because of the lack of developing themselves.
100%. Because if you're transferring and you're not getting the proper coaching, your skill level is going to go down. I mean, I see it all the time when a lot of kids transfer and you're wondering why are they a bust right now? Is because what they're doing is they're focusing so much on getting playing time as opposed to developing into a great receiver. I mean, when I played at The Ohio State University, I didn't develop into a great wide receiver until my senior year. But I had to go through the process. I had to go through the adversity. I had to go through the times where I cried and I wanted to quit and all these things. But it developed me to when I got in that pressure situation, I was able to handle the pressure situation. So, you got kids that are going to comfortable situations, and I'm not being down on them. But if you're not developing the kid and then they go through adversity, their first inclination is, I'm going to quit. And you're going to lose the essence of that.
Another texter texts in the text line. My mom texts in the text line, actually, and
Who's
says,
that?
My mom.
Hey, mama.
She says, will colleges hire the equivalent of agents to handle sponsorships and endorsements? They should.
Yeah, but see, the thing about it is, if you have an agent, you're ineligible.
But maybe not agents, but the equivalent of that, to have like a mentor, the person that you can go to say, hey, like, I have all of these opportunities. Will you help me sort through them? Just someone to be there to, first of all, help them sort through the business side of things, and then also go from there to say, what's the best way to go about this for my personal brand? What's the best way to post this on my social media? They're asking me to do this. Is this in my best interest? So will there be? I don't necessarily think that will be a requirement by the NCAA, but I think a lot of colleges will and should if they don't already.
But how you know who's who? Just like in the NFL, they have a list of agents, and you got to be certified. So are they going to have certified people to help these guys in college?
I hope.
See, they got to be certified because can I tell a story? We got time?
Go ahead. Yeah, by all means.
I remember when I was trying to find an agent in the NFL, and all these agents were calling me, and then my roommate was Joe Galloway, so we had a whole bunch of agents calling. So this one guy comes over, like, man, can I meet with you? Whatever. He said, man, if you sign right here, I'll give you $40,000 and whatever. But he wasn't even a licensed agent. So, you got people that are going to come out of the woodworks that are not licensed to do the thing because they're looking at money. You just got to make sure they have a book like the NFL. They have a list of every agent. They have a list of all the people that are licensed to do that. So if they're licensed to do that, they need to make sure they put guys in place to make sure these guys are taken care of in college.
Because it could be so easy for someone to take advantage of a young person who, they may say, hey, I'm here to help you. I'm here to guide you where you need to be. And, when you're 17, 18, 19 years old, you may not know any better. And it would be a shame to see someone take advantage of a college kid who's really only trying to better themselves and to better their brand.
And then the parents, and I'm going to share the illustration. I remember, I think it was Allen Iverson, he was in his limo one time, and he got a phone call. And he answered it. He was like, oh, man, my family's asking for money again. Another pressure. So now you got a kid.
And how do you say no to your
family?
family?
How do you say no? And then the mom's going to say, well, you said that when you got to this point that you were going to help me. Another pressure. So instead of him focusing on the game, he's focusing on trying to please the pressure of buying his mom a home, which is a great thing. I'm not saying it's bad.
Absolutely.
But at a young age, you're 18, 19, you already got pressure to perform on the field. But now you got a pressure with family saying, I need a car, I need a house, I need these things. Those are the things we're going to have to deal with. Man.
That's the future that we're living in. This NIL era in the NCAA, what is it going to look like for these college athletes? There are already been so many who have capitalized. Once the clock struck July 1st, my Instagram was flooded with sponsored posts by college athletes. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We're taking your calls, your texts. News 2 sports anchor Corey Curtis will join us later this hour. You are listening to Stillman and Company live on 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company is delivered by TriStar Moving Company. TriStar Movers with 5-star service. I am Caroline Fenton, joined by Chris Sanders, filling in for Jared Stillman. And we're breaking down name, image, and likeness. What will this name, image, and likeness era look like in college sports? Are we going to see more transfers motivated by money? Are we going to see athletes stay in their schools because they're getting a payday from a local business down the street? The future of college sports is a little bit of an unknown. We agreed that at the very core of it, it's a good thing.
It is.
But there are some issues that are involved with it. We've mentioned possible transfers. We've mentioned locker room issues. Another thing that we have yet to hit on is the possible impact that it could make on coaching. Dabo Swinney said in 2019, if college players start to get paid, then he's gonna leave college coaching. He's gonna go to the NFL. He's gonna retire. You gotta wonder, what's Dabo saying now?
I mean, everything that we said. I mean, just there's the good and the bad part about it, and everything we talked about earlier in the show is, he loves to play football. He loves his player. He loves the locker room. He loves everything about the essence and the pureness of college football. Mm-hmm. We're about to lose it. I mean, I hate to say that we are definitely going to lose it. And he said that because, not to be mean or just be opposite of not just playing players, because college players need to be paid. They do. But the thing about it is you're going to lose the love and the essence in developing players, and he saw it before everybody else saw it.
And I do wonder, we saw Coach K, legendary Duke basketball coach. He retired a few months ago, and he said, this isn't because of the name, image, and likeness thing. He said there have been a lot of changes in college basketball and college sports in general since I've been at the helm of Duke basketball, so that's nothing new to me. I don't know if I necessarily 100% believe him. It's going to introduce so many new obstacles for college coaches, and Coach K may have looked at that and said, "Hey, I've made my money. I've won my trophies. I have former athletes, former players in the NBA. I don't need to deal with these new changes coming forward." So he may have absolutely been ready to retire, but that could have been a catalyst to him retiring. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that from college coaches in the future.
And you know what's so crazy we're not talking about also is social media is going to blow up even bigger.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know how people get on Facebook and they get on Instagram. Well, my son's going to McNeese State. My son got a ride from here. My son got this. My son got that, which is great. I mean, everybody wants to brag on their kids.
Oh, yeah.
But then you're going to start saying, my son got an offer a 1.5 from a dealership. I mean, what in Sam E. Hill are we talking about?
Right.
So it's going to get bigger, and, it's going to create more competition. It's going to create more fierceness of trying to be the top dog, because the internet and the social media, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, but everybody puts their whole life on there, and they're going to put their whole life on there. So they're going to show pictures when they're signing. They're going to show them pictures when they're making a 1.5, and you just got to make sure that you're using it for the right way.
And I think it's so important for these athletes to have people in their corner to be able to support them if they're going through a difficult time, if they don't know what to do with their money, they have someone there. But there was an athlete that we learned about today who didn't necessarily have someone in her corner. Sha'Carri Richardson. She runs track for USA Track and Field. She won the gold medal at the Olympic trials, is considered the fastest woman in the world for the 100-meter dash. Yeah. Today, we learned that she tested positive for marijuana, and she will be suspended for a month, and therefore she will not be able to compete in Tokyo. She got the gold. She had the fastest time, and now she won't be able to be on the biggest stage because she tested positive for marijuana. When you learned that, Chris, just your first initial reactions.
It breaks my heart. Everybody
breaks my heart.
It breaks my heart. But here's the thing. This is where I'm looking at it in a different aspect. When I ran track and I ran the NCAAs and I went to Olympic trials, when you are in the top 4 or the top 6 or the top 7, you automatically get drug tested. Mm-hmm. So if she knows that and she knows she's going to fail the drug test, there's an addiction here. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I say this is because, and I'm going to read this. I'll pull it up on my phone. She says this. She says she's blinded by emotion, blinded by sadness, blinded by just hurt. Hiding hurt, honestly, I can't hide myself. So at least in some type of way, I was just trying to hide the pain.
God, that just makes me want to hold her and give her a hug.
That's what I'm saying.
And let her know it's going to be okay. It breaks my heart. And I can't imagine what she's going through. She mentioned that her biological mother had passed away, and she found out from a news reporter. She was in an interview, and a news reporter broke the news to her. So just unimaginable what she is going through. And we mentioned earlier, you wish that she had someone for her to kind of be there, to guide her, to let her know, hey, here's what you need to do. There's been a lot of discussion on social media to say, hey, let Sha'Carri Richardson run. Let her run. Let her do it. It feels like there's a double standard in sports.
But there's a
when
rule.
it comes to marijuana.
But
Because
it's a rule.
There's a rule.
Yeah.
In the NBA, marijuana is not on the list that you get drug tested for. NBA players can smoke marijuana if they'd like to. Sha'Carri Richardson was in a state where marijuana is legal. She was in Oregon. You can legally smoke marijuana, ingest marijuana in Oregon. She did not break the law. But there's a rule.
There's a rule.
There's a rule in USA Track and Field, as you mentioned. When you finish top 4 in the Olympic trials, you instantly get drug tested right after. She knew that rule. And she broke that rule.
Yeah.
As unfair as it feels, as unfair as it seems, as much as it sucks, and as inconsistent as these rules might feel, that's the rule. And it doesn't really necessarily make sense. Marijuana is not a performance-enhancing drug.
No.
If anything, it's going to hurt you when you're a professional athlete. But that's the rule, and unfortunately, she broke it.
Can I? I'm not being political or anything, and I'm being careful when I'm on the show, but I've been looking at Facebook and I've been looking at Instagram, and this is what really makes me really upset. Is you have a lot of African American people saying it's just another way to keep a black person out of the Olympics. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. Because why wouldn't you want to have your best go to the Olympics to make your country shine? That's wrong. It's a rule. It is a rule that if you have any kind of drug in your body when you're running track, you cannot. I'm not being political, but I think we really need to say this. It's about you can't take a drug and then run. That's just the rule. And then the thing about it is, this is what I'm looking at also. We got to understand that if she knew the rule and she still took the drug, that means that's an addiction. That means that she needs help. Let's figure out a way to help her, not just focus on her going to the Olympics. You can go to the Olympics and you shine for one moment, then all of a sudden you go back into the darkness. Let's figure out a way to make sure this young lady gets help. That's what I'm focusing on. Yeah, we've all blown it. I've made mistakes. Everybody's made mistakes. We've done some stupid things that we regret. But the thing about it is, let's let her learn from this situation to understand, you know what? Even though I'm great at track, even though I have the fastest time in the world, but I still need help. I'm dealing with hurt. I'm dealing with pain. I'm dealing with an addiction. So now, man, my goodness, if she overcomes the addiction, then now she can win in life.
Do you think it would be a duty of USA Track and Field or the Olympics as a whole to provide that support that you believe would be necessary for Sha'Carri Richardson?
I think this is just my opinion. I don't think
In your opinion.
I don't think it's their responsibility to do that. I think that she's got to make sure she gets some people around her, because the thing about it is you can have somebody outside her camp tell her something, but there's no relationship, so she might not accept it. But if she has somebody in her camp that's been walking with her, talking with her, and has a relationship with her, then she can get her the help that she needs. It's kind of like if I didn't know you and you saw me running routes and you came on the field like, Chris, man, you need to run your routes, but I'm going to look at you like, what are you talking about?
Who is this girl?
Who is that? But then I have my coach that's been walking with me say, Chris, you got to do this, this, and this. I'm going to listen to him because we have a relationship. And that's the same thing with her. She's got to make sure she has people around her that has a relationship, that loves her for her, that loves her through her good, that loves her through her bad, that loves her through her mistake, to say, you know what, you messed up. Yeah, you messed up, but let's go get better. Let's go get back on the track. Let's go get back on getting you healthy, not just physically, but mentally.
Absolutely. And it does kind of feel, we've seen it across social media today, at least I have. There have been several professional athletes that have reached out and said, free her, let her run. This isn't fair. And it doesn't feel fair. It doesn't feel fair at all. It makes me think of NC State. When NC State was disqualified from the College World Series and Vanderbilt advanced to the College World Series finals, that's what so many people were saying. NC State fans and non-NC State fans alike were saying, this isn't fair. No, it's not. But those are the rules. Those are the rules, and just because the rules don't feel fair and just because you don't agree with them, that doesn't mean that they don't exist. And you got to feel for her. You have to feel for Sha'Carri Richardson. That is terrible, and I wish that I could go back in time and that there was somebody that could be there for her and tell her, hey, stop. We're going to prepare for the Olympics. This is what we're going to do. We're not going to put our possibility of a gold medal at risk.
Yeah.
But she did break the rules. And as annoying as it is, as much as it sucks, as much as as unfair as it feels, she broke a rule.
You know, if I had a whole bunch of hair, I would pull it out right now. And the reason why I pull it out right now is because what drives me just absolutely nuts and just makes my I don't have hair on my head, make my back of my neck, the back of my hair curl, is when you so focused on letting her run, but you never say get her help. Mm-hmm. That makes me so mad. Listen, I was just looking at it. I was just looking at it on Instagram. All these stars and all these professional people are coming out and say, let her run, let her run. But not one moment did you say, get her help. That just irks me. Now, see, now you made it about you as opposed to making it about her. Say, you know what? Listen, I understand that it's a rule. Yes, she made a mistake, but let's figure out a way to get her help. I mean, I just saw a famous rapper get on there talking about, man, she needs to run. It's just a conspiracy. No, it's not a conspiracy.
Conspiracy?
No, it's not a conspiracy. It's about a girl that's crying out for help. So now you're focusing on let her run in Olympics. Listen, it is a big thing to run in the Olympics. I mean, I went to Olympic trials and, it was big for me. I was ranked number 3 in the world. So I understand the magnitude of it. But if I win a long jump and I win a medal, but I'm dying inside, means absolutely nothing. Zero.
Just absolutely heartbreaking story about Sha'Carri Richardson, a USA track and field runner who won the gold in the 100-meter dash, and now she is suspended from the Olympics in Tokyo for testing positive for marijuana. Is it fair? Is it not? What are your opinions? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Let's get your opinions. Let's get your thoughts. Stillman & Company is live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and the ESPN Nashville game app. Before we go, be caller 4 now to win a family 4-pack of tickets to see the Nashville Sounds this Sunday at First Horizon Park as they take on the Louisville Bats, AAA affiliate of the Cincinnati Reds. You're listening to Stillman & Company live on 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, we are live from the wholesaling studio powered by RumbleOn.com. Caroline Fenton joined by Chris Sanders, forever
What's up?
Titans wide receiver. We have been breaking down Sha'Carri Richardson's drug test that came out today that tested positive, and she just learned that she will be suspended by USA Track and Field for a month, which now deems her ineligible for the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. She was going to run the 100-meter dash. She won the gold medal, and now she's ineligible. And it's tough to see someone with so much potential. She's 21 years old. She's just a baby. So tough to see someone with so much potential and not being able to see that through. But we had also mentioned that she knows the rules.
Yeah.
And she broke it. When you finish top 4 in the Olympic trials, you get drug tested right after, and she knew that marijuana was a banned substance by USA Track and Field. So as unfair, as annoying, as much as it sucks, as much as all of it is, it feels like there is a double standard because NBA players can smoke weed. When you belong to USA Track and Field, you can't. And that feels annoying and that feels unfair, but those are the rules.
Yeah, and there's a protocol in track because I ran track at The Ohio State University, and I went to the NCAA track meet, and then I went to the Olympic trial. There's a protocol. They go through all the things. They give you a list of what you can and what you cannot do. So if you know that you have the list, you got to abide by that list regardless of it's a different policy in a different state. You have to abide by the NCAA track rules. And that's why, my heart really breaks because she worked her whole life to get to this point, and she went through trials and tribulation, and I commend all that. But I'm not focusing on the track right now. I'm focusing on getting her some help, and I said it before. I just get really, really upset when we try to make this a race thing because it's not. That means people are getting miseducated of thinking that it's a race thing, thinking that, United States is trying to stop another black woman or another black man from succeeding in their dreams. And that's absolutely wrong. You just got to make sure that, that if she has an addiction, we got to figure out a way to get her some help. So now she can be ready for the 4x1 because I think she has a chance to run a 4x1 relay because that's on a different day and get her ready for that. So.
And I may be naive to think this because I generally tend to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, but I can only think that there is not anyone in this country that wouldn't be so proud to see her go out and win a gold medal at the Olympics on the world stage.
Oh, no doubt. You want to because of the trials and tribulations that she went through. And, watching her go through the Olympic trials and she won her 100-meter dash, you can see the emotion coming out. She talked about her mother. She went up and hugged, I think it was an auntie in the stands, and hugged her dad or whoever was in the stands because the emotions overtook her. You feel for her, and you want her to be successful. So even if she doesn't run a 100-meter dash and she wins the 4x1 relay, which they definitely will, she's still going to benefit by being in the Olympics.
Absolutely. And there has been such an outcry on social media by professional athletes, by celebrities, by anyone and everyone really saying, let Sha'Carri Richardson run. And you have to think if there are that many people that feel so strongly about this, who feel like marijuana is not a punishable offense, then it should be a rule that should be changed. So I wonder if we are going to see Sha'Carri Richardson or the people in her corner take this unfortunate situation and turn it into something good and possibly try and change this rule and help other athletes in the process.
Yeah, they're probably going to use this as an example. Definitely because she's a big name and also it's Olympic year and everybody's going to be talking about it. And when they go to the Olympics, what's going to be the main topic? They're going to be talking about her. So you're going to have a lot of people who agree with it, who disagree with it, and it's going to bring attention to what's going on. So they're going to go back and reevaluate and say, should we do this or not do it? But at the end of the day, we're talking about making sure that she runs the 100-meter dash, but not one of the stars we're talking about getting her some help. That's a problem. And that's a problem. We're talking about, they're trying to stop the black man. Man, that's nonsense. That's far from it. Let's figure out a way to get this young lady some help because you can tell by reading the quote that I wrote earlier, she's going through some pain. Let's figure out a way to help her overcome adversity, not just winning a 100-meter dash, about helping her win in life. And now she benefits from both by winning a 4x1, but also winning in life.
And Sha'Carri Richardson was on the Today Show today and spoke about everything that had happened, her emotions, what she learned about it. Ian, do we have that quote? Cool. We'll listen to Sha'Carri Richardson, who was on the Today Show this morning.
So tell me, what happened? What led up to this positive test?
Just honestly or just I want to take responsibility for my actions. I know what I did. I know what I'm supposed to do. No, I'm allowed not to do, and I still made that decision. But not making an excuse or looking for any empathy in my case, but just however being in that position of my life, finding out something like that, something that I would say is probably one of the biggest things that have impacted me positively and negatively in my life when it comes to dealing with the relationship I have with my mother. So that definitely was a very heavy topic on me. Like on a face, I have to go in front of the world and put on a face and hide my pain.
God.
Did y'all hear what she said?
Put on a face
Put
and
on a
hide
face.
my pain.
See see it has nothing to do with track. And here's what she said. She said, "I knew what the rules were, but I did it anyway."
It gives me goosebumps.
But see, it's not that she's just trying to break the rules. It's she's trying to subside the pain. Mm-hmm. See, we're not talking about that. And she even said that I made the mistake. It's not. She didn't say, "Well, it's a conspiracy. They're not trying to let a black woman run in the Olympics." That's
she knows
nonsense.
what she did was against the rules.
But she said the pain of her mother. So she's trying to take a substance to try to take away the pain. So let's get help with that as opposed to trying to hurry up, get her on the track and field to run the 100-meter dash. Because if she runs the 100-meter dash, but she's still dealing with the pain, the Olympics is over, but she's still got to live life.
And some things are just a little bit bigger than sports.
No doubt.
Because, this woman has worked her life for this.
No doubt.
You don't get to the Olympics without working your butt off. So of course this is a dream of hers. She's worked her entire life to do this. But the fact that she put all of that second.
And I think that subconsciously she did put it second. But I think sometimes the pain is so deep that you can't find anything else to subside the pain. So you go to what's familiar. You go to what's been a habit. There's people that deal with pain different. Some people, alcohol or going to play golf or to go do these things. That's the habit because they're familiar with it. Maybe she was doing it so much to subside the pain that she was familiar with it and it became a habit. So even though she knew that I'm going to get tested when I win the 100-meter dash, but the pain is so deep that I have to do something to subside it.
Gosh, it just makes you feel for Sha'Carri Richardson. She qualified for the Olympics in Tokyo and is now ineligible for at least for a month after testing positive for marijuana. And we'll go to your text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Matt says the rule's unfair, but rules are rules, and you punish those who follow them by not punishing those who don't. And that's true.
Yeah.
The USA Track and Field in the Olympics would be setting a precedent if they looked past this, if they said, okay, after all this outpouring on social media, we'll let her run. You can't do that. You can't put your rules aside to make an exception for one person, but you can wonder, are we possibly going to see a change in the future?
You're going to see a change. Mm-hmm. And we got to understand, and he said it right, there's rules to rules. There's a protocol. Mm-hmm. In college, when I came in and I was running for The Ohio State University, we had to have this little booklet and it talked about all the substances you can't take and what you can and what you can and what you can't do. So I knew that. So, she knew that. Miss Richardson, she knew exactly what was going on. And she knew that if she took this, she was going to get in trouble. But the pain was so deep that she had to figure out something or someone to help me get past this pain. And her something was the weed. Mm-hmm. And that's the hard part about it, because in her camp, they knew that those things was going on. They knew that she's dealing with these situations. They knew that, okay, if she comes to practice, that something's a little off. So instead of figuring out, okay, work on your drive phase or work on your hurdles. I mean, not working your hurdles, but work on, your arms or working on your stride. Let's work on your life. Let's work on helping you overcome this pain. Let's help you overcome the stuff that's going on in your life so now you can perform at a top level.
Man, Chris Sanders, those kids in Montgomery Bell sure are lucky to have you in their lives. Such a wonderful mentor.
Thank you
and
so
wonderful
much.
words from Chris Sanders. Coming up next, News 2 Sports Director Corey Curtis will join us for a Fireball Hot Take Friday. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Stillman & Company is live on 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Corey Curtis, News 2 sports director, joins us now. Corey, it's a Fireball Hot Take Friday. We're happy to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So, Corey, we saw that Victor Arvidsson was traded to the Los Angeles Kings yesterday for a 2021 second rounder, a 2022 third rounder. So, your initial reactions, do you think it was a good move by David Poile, and what grade would you give David Poile on this trade?
Well, yes, I do, and it's difficult to trade away popular players because Victor was a very popular player, and he was fun to watch. But the simple fact is, he's not the player, hasn't been the player the last 2 years that he was before. I mean, before he was like dropping a Mentos into a bottle of Coke. I mean, he hit the ice and he just exploded, and he doesn't do that now. He had 94 goals in 3 seasons, guys. 94. Since then, he's had 25 over the last 2. I know they're partial seasons. I know that, it's not, things have been different with COVID and everything, but his presence on the ice, his impact on the ice isn't the same. You can see it. Whether it's because he's hurt or whatever, it's not the same. And does that mean he can't be that player again? No. But he hasn't been that player for 2 years, and I always say hope isn't a very good strategy. So instead of hoping, they clear $4.25 million in cap space, they get a second-round pick and a third-round pick, and they allow some younger players who proved to be pretty productive last year to come in and play a bigger role with their hockey team. What grade do I give it? I don't know, a B, B+. I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, Victor Arvidsson, if he's coming off a 34-goal season, he's worth a first-round pick. He's not. I mean, his value is diminished, and that's all there is to it.
Corey, hey, I want to talk about this NIL stuff, man. I want to get your take on it, man. I'm just gonna throw it out there to you. I'm just gonna throw an alley-oop and let you go, baby. Do you think the players should get paid?
I think everybody should be allowed to make what they're worth. I have always said this, Chris. 30 years ago, it was an equitable exchange, the scholarship for playing, okay? The money is so different now. Alabama's coaching staff makes $17.5 million or in that neighborhood, okay? And you're telling me there's no money for players? All right? Nobody's coming to see the offensive coordinator who's making $2 million or whatever he's making in Alabama. They're coming to see the quarterback and the running back and the wide receivers make plays. Those guys are worth money, okay? No one else's income is capped except for theirs, and it's capped at 0, okay? So, yes, I absolutely think they should get paid. I'm glad they're getting name, image, and likeness. That's not costing the schools anything. That's not costing the NCAA anything. That's just allowing them to get money for who they are, nothing from the universities. So they're not getting paid yet. They're getting money from outside sources with separate agreements. It's got nothing to do with the schools, okay? So they're not technically getting paid to play yet. They're getting paid by people who want them to represent their products or pay them for their signature or for whatever. So it's kind of two different questions in my book. Do I think they should get paid on top of it? Yeah, I do. I'm all about these guys getting what they're worth. This was going to be my hot take. I'm going to unload it now. Did you see where Master P's son got $2 million?
I saw that.
Chris, he may never set foot on an NBA court, okay? I mean, if he goes to TSU and he's an average player or a good player, he's never going to make any money playing basketball. But because of who he is and what he's doing right now, he's worth $2 million. He might not be worth $2 million in 4 years. But because of the new rule, he's allowed to become a billionaire now.
Wow.
I think that's tremendous.
And the thing about it is, too, I want to allude on this also. Does it put a lot of pressure on these coaches to try to get the right kid?
Yeah, well, I think that pressure is always there. I mean, is it even more? To make sure they satisfy the kid as opposed to them saying, "I don't like you, you're not giving me enough, and I'm going to another school." Well, I mean, yeah, I mean that's always the chance. I mean, shoot, that's John Robinson goes through that with the Titans, making sure you get the right kind of person. We just went through this with Isaiah Wilson, wasn't the right kind of person, and that's if you're in any kind of personnel, it's not just about height, weight, speed, strength, okay? You got to be able to read what's inside, because what's inside is really what's the difference. There are plenty of superstar athletes who don't perform at a superstar level, but there are superstar people who do, okay? And those are, when you find the superstar people, that's what separates you, and that's what the really great coaches and the really great personnel people do. And will it put a premium on this? Yeah, because will money create problems for some guys? Yes, it will. Look at Isaiah Wilson. But that's not a reason not to do it, okay? I hear a lot of excuses not to do it. Giving these kids what they're worth is the right thing to do, okay? And there's, in any situation there are problems. There are problems being created by those kids not getting money, okay? But we don't talk about those. But, the moment we get money, we go, oh, well, this is going to do this, and this is going to do this. And you know what else it's going to do? It's going to put money in their pocket and make their lives easier.
Corey, you mentioned an athlete who could potentially make more money in college than they ever could playing a sport professionally. Do you think that the new NIL rules could persuade athletes to stay in college longer than they would have just because they're making money? They're cashing in college.
Carol, I think that's a great point. I think it's a great point. We were talking about Scottie Pippen Jr. in the office the other day, and that he wasn't invited to the Combine. He was invited to the G League Combine, and I have not seen him on any draft boards listed in the first or second round. That doesn't mean he's not going to get picked, but he's taken a chance. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean he can't go play in Europe, and it doesn't mean he can't play in the G League, but now a choice is coming back to Vanderbilt and striking up a deal with whoever and making some money while you're there and improving your game. It could make the college game better, right? By keeping kids in school longer because they actually can make money and try to improve their draft status at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. You can assume that with a last name like Scottie Pippen Jr.'s, I don't think you would have any issue finding any sort of sponsorship or endorsement deals. But on the other side of things, we mentioned athletes could stay in college longer, but Dabo Swinney mentioned a couple of years ago that if it came to it where players were getting paid, that he was going to be out. He would potentially go to the pros. Do you think that this could be a catalyst for some coaches to leave college coaching because of the added challenges and obstacles?
Well, I think if it is, then good riddance, because that's one of the most hypocritical things I've ever heard in my life, okay? A guy who makes $8.2 million a year bemoaning that his players might get a piece of the action. I mean, give me a break. That's a disgusting, selfish, personal statement. And when I read that, and I know it was 2 years ago, and maybe he's changed his tune, but to me, that's one of those moments where I throw up inside my mouth a little bit.
No, I'm with it. It's so hypocritical. And I'm sure he has changed his tune very
it's
much
absurd.
so.
It's absurd. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. I mean, look, Dan Mullen down in Florida just got, a $1.3 million a year raise?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so they just threw him another $1.3 million a year. Hey, Dan, doing a great job. $1.3 million. How many players you got on the college roster, Chris? 85 on scholarship, about 100 total?
85. Yes, about 110.
Okay, okay. What's 1.3 million into 100?
I went to Ohio State. I don't know.
Okay. Well, but that's my point. They're just throwing around 1.3 million like it's nothing. What would that 1.3 million mean to those 100 college football players?
Yeah.
It'd mean a lot. What if you divided it 1.3 million into every college athlete on campus? It's still enough to mean a lot. I mean, you went to college. I went to college. Caroline, I don't know you that well. I'm assuming you went to college.
I did.
I was poor. I was hungry. Okay, I could have used anything anybody could have given me.
Well, Corey, let me take a different turn. I mean, we're talking about the same thing, but what if you have a situation where a kid came from a tough situation, background was pretty tough, and all of a sudden you handed them $2.5 million? I mean, how is he going to know how to handle it if he's never been taught how to handle it? So is there going to be a plan
So you just don't want to give him the money?
No, I'm not saying
the money because
no. I'm just saying not giving them money, but why not come up with a plan to where if they graduate or when they leave college, they get that money as opposed to just giving it to them right away. What do you think about that?
Well, look, they're grown adults at 18, all right? So
kind of
their money. But look, I understand what you're saying, but you can vote, you can carry a gun in the military, you can take a bullet for your country, you can accept a check for $2.5 million if it comes your way.
No, I'll take it now.
But again, I think the point you bring up is a good one. And this is another one of the failures of the NCAA by dragging their feet on this and then just basically throwing up their hands the other day and saying, okay, NIL, go for it. Because it's on the schools now to get these pieces in place, okay, to help these kids handle these situations. And because now, you know what it's like out there, Chris. There's going to be a lot of people looking to take advantage of a lot of inexperienced people.
Yes.
All right? And so it's really going to be on these kids to make good decisions. And it would be helpful if the universities had people in their athletic departments who were there to help these kids with these financial decisions. You know, you could create whole new positions within the athletic department, of financial counseling or whatever. I don't know. I know you've talked about kids hiring agents. I know there's talk of a union eventually forming within the players, and I think it's going to have to. I think it's going to have to eventually, because stuff's going to have to be collectively bargained eventually. But if the schools could be there to tell, when the kids get an opportunity where they could put it in front of them and say, tell me what this deal is. Tell me if this is smart or not. Tell me if someone's trying to take advantage of me or not. I think that will be one of the things that separates the good programs from the bad programs. And, if you give the kids the opportunity, if they don't use it, it's on them. Okay? But I do think you're right. There needs to be something in place, because college is about learning, right? There needs to be something in the place to help these kids learn how to handle their money. If they choose to blow it, they blow it. Look, I know my brother grew up in the military, all right? My brother was in the Army for 24 years, and he tells me these stories all the time. He'd go on deployment, he'd go to Iraq for a year, Afghanistan for a year and a half, whatever, and he'd have a check for $40 or $50 or $60,000 waiting for him when he got back. Well, 18, 19, 21-year-old guys, they go out and they buy a motorcycle and a jet ski or whatever, and they just blow it. They just blow it. He put it in GE stock or what? I mean, that's not a good one right now, but or an Apple stock or whatever. And his money did a lot more for him. And he tried to teach these guys to do this. Some of them listened. Most of them did not. Again, they were 18-year-old kids or 21-year-old kids being handed large lumps of money. He tried to give them the information, and that's all you can do. Give them the information. Some of it is going to be on them.
Well, going back in time, you had a situation with Reggie Bush and Jim Tressel. Do you go back and try to fix it, or you just kind of just go forward and just kind of, go forward with what they're doing now? Do you go back and try to fix it with Reggie Bush and give him his Heisman?
You can't go. You can't go back in time, Chris. You know why? Because those were the rules then, and whether the rules were good rules or bad rules, those were the rules, and everybody knows what the rules are. It doesn't mean we have to agree with the rules, but that's what the rules were, and everybody knew it. Okay, Do I think Reggie Bush was a horrible person for doing it? No, I don't. But I just don't see going back in time and saying, well, these are the rules now because we've determined those rules were unfair. Then, to me, it doesn't work that way.
We're talking to Corey Curtis, News 2 sports director. And one last thing for you, Corey. I know that you shared your hot take earlier. It is a Fireball Hot Take Friday, so let me beat you into possibly another hot take. We saw Vanderbilt fall to Mississippi State in the College World Series finals, and it kind of felt like Vanderbilt got a lot of really lucky breaks in the College World Series in that game against Stanford. I felt like Stanford won that game, and there were just a few costly mistakes that led Vanderbilt to win. And, of course, that was Vanderbilt's talent that they could capitalize on those mistakes and win. And then, of course, NC State. That was not Vanderbilt's fault. That was not anything against Vanderbilt, but they advanced into the College World Series. And we saw two bad losses by Vanderbilt in the College World Series. Do you think that they were the second best team in Omaha? Do you think that Vanderbilt really did earn their way to the College World Series finals?
That's two different questions. Do I think they were the second best team? No, I don't think they were the second best team, but I do think they earned their way to the finals. They did everything they had to do to get there, so they absolutely earned it. I'll take it a step further. And again, this isn't me begrudging this Vanderbilt team. This is a compliment, okay? I think, in my estimation, this might be the least talented team that Tim Corbin took to Omaha, and he made it to the finals. I look at that victory over Stanford as a crowning achievement for the head coach. He dragged that team across the finish line that night. He got them together in the fourth inning, and he got them together in the dugout, and he got them pointed in the right direction, and he pulled them across the finish line and got them a win that ultimately got them to the finals. And so they absolutely did earn it. And like I said, getting to the finals with this squad, look, the two starting pitchers are tremendous. There are other talented players on that roster. But if we look at the other teams that he's taken to Omaha and the players that are on those teams, it's a who's who. It's ridiculous. Half of them are in the big leagues right now. And I don't know if we're going to be able to say that about this team. So I don't want to say, just making it to the finals was great. But for this team, making it to the finals, to me, was extraordinary.
Absolutely. Corey Curtis, News 2 Sports Director. We appreciate you always, Corey. Enjoy your 4th of July weekend.
Appreciate you, man.
All right. Thanks. You guys have a good time at the ballpark.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. And coming up next, we'll hit some of the headlines with Caroline. And as well, we saw some negative reaction from Predators players on social media following the Victor Arvidsson trend. And I want to get Chris Sanders' perspective as a former player and what it's like to have a trade mix up the locker room a bit. We are listening to Stillman & Company live on 102.5 The Game.
What?
Stillman & Company is delivered by TriStar Moving. TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Now, Chris Sanders, you said that you had a certain something that you wanted to mention.
Oh, man, I got to get on Jared Stillman. He talked bad about me by having my Jacksonville Jaguar jersey on Facebook Live. I got to talk about his surfing skills. He looked gross.
Oh, you can't do Jared like
and Jared,
that.
if you're listening, you look like the most unathletic person I've ever seen.
You cannot do Jared like that.
You know,
not everyone can be an NFL wide receiver, an Olympic trials runner, Chris Sanders.
You know his nickname, John Candy.
So mean. So mean to poor Jared Stillman.
Actually, I know I'm joking, but Jared and you guys, I listen to you guys on my way home, and I'm telling you guys do an awesome job.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome
I
job.
appreciate it. We're happy to have you on
Thank
here.
you so much.
And without further ado, we will present some headlines with Caroline.
We're spanning the sports world. It's Headlines with Caroline on Stillman and Company, right here on Nashville's best sports talk, ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
So I heard this on the midday show today, and I just felt the need to repeat it. So if anybody has heard this before, just please excuse me. But I just felt the need that everyone needed to know this. And there was a record broken in Omaha this past week.
What was it?
Most Jell-O shots at a nearby bar in Omaha. The former record, 842 in 2019, set by Arkansas after they went 2 and out.
Yeah.
Set the record for the most Jell-O shots ordered by Arkansas fans. Mississippi State fans obliterated the record this year with 2,852 Jell-O shots.
That's
so hail
record
State to that. Good record to have, indeed. I just thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Also, the Dallas Cowboys will become the first NFL team to be featured for the 3rd time on Hard Knocks.
Why them?
The 20th anniversary of the show. They just announced that it will debut on August 10th at 9 o'clock Central on HBO and NFL Films.
Why aren't we on it?
That's a great question.
I mean, you got Julio Jones, you got Audrey,
Derrick Henry,
you got the 2,000-yard rusher.
Norris Jenkins, you got Ryan Tannehill.
A.J. Brown, Hollywood. I mean, come on. I mean, what else do you need?
That's
we
fair.
got you.
I mean, if they want me on there, if they want Stillman and Company on Hard Knocks, we will be more than happy to. The very first radio duo to be featured on a Hard Knocks episode. I'm up for it.
But you know, Jared will probably start an argument with somebody. Well, I don't like
probably.
I don't like talent here and there. I mean, you know how he talks.
He does like Tannehill, though. I'll give him credit for that.
He does.
He does like Tannehill.
He does.
But this is the 3rd time the Cowboys will be on Hard Knocks. They were on 2002 and 2008. So a couple things to watch on this Hard Knocks episode. Dak's bounce back. His recovery. He
looked good. You saw him when with Mississippi State. He was in the stands.
You looked like he was having a good time.
Man, he looks big. But isn't that a good deal for him to go and support the baseball team?
So cool.
Cheering. And you know the cool thing that I saw about that? I know we're getting off the subject, but somebody hit a foul ball and the guy caught it. He had a Sharpie in his hand and the guy threw it to him and he signed it.
That is really
is that cool? I mean, that's how you be personal with your fans. And, you know, he was enjoying it. He was shouting. And he had a good time. He had a couple of Jell-O shots.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he contributed to one of the 2,852. You should just say Jay Cutler probably contributed.
Oh, I saw him too.
Well. It was so funny. The side by side of Jay Cutler and Dak Prescott was hilarious.
Hilarious. He looked like he weighed about 105. Dak was 260.
Right. Quite the juxtaposition there in Omaha. And then another thing is Mike McCarthy in year 2. He had a 6-10 season in his first year as the Cowboys head coach.
Yeah.
Not great. Are we going to see redemption from Dak and Mike McCarthy? What do you expect from them?
I think they're going to be good. I mean, you know, Dak's going to be hungry, especially coming off the injury. So you can tell he's excited to get back. He's excited to be with his teammates. But I'm telling you, they got some talent. But it's all going to come down to the coaching. So if the coaches can put it together and they play together, team, you know, they're the United States' favorite team. I know. Is that a bad word? Danggummit.
What? The Cowboys?
Yeah. I'm tired of talking about them jokers, man. Talk about the Titans. The Titans are ready to roll, man.
There you go.
Yeah, you got me all excited. I'm coming out of retirement, danggummit.
Chris Sanders hits the field. It's gonna have a wide receiver quad out there with Josh Reynolds, Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, and Chris Sanders.
Ooh, man, I think I'll blow a hammy on my first route.
Some somber news coming out today. Mark Richt, former Georgia head coach and Miami head coach, just announced today that he's been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. I hate to see that. Just a great person, a great man, a great coach who did so many great things for the Georgia fan base.
Yeah.
He played at Miami and then returned as a head coach at the University of Miami. And he said he was going to take some time away, but he's planning on returning to the ACC network to do college football analyst, do some play-by-play. So great to see him get back out there, but just some terrible news about a wonderful figure in all of college football.
Yeah, it is. I mean, he's going through that tough situation, but the one thing I love that I heard about his quote is he's not giving up.
Right.
I mean, that's just a fighter in him. That's why he's a great coach, is because, you know, he used his DNA and injected into his players to not give up and be successful in life. And that's exactly what he's doing. Yeah, he's going through a tough situation. Yes, he's going through something fierce, but guess what? He's not letting him stop himself.
I love it. That's a wonderful lesson to everyone out there. And I wanted to get your perspective on this. So Tom Brady said he feels like he doesn't have the freedom to say what he wants. He says, "I'm not my own entrepreneur who can make my own individual choices. I think I'll get there at some point where I can and I'll choose to, but you're still in a structured system. So you still feel like you've got to play, at least I feel like, by their rules. So there's definitely times where you don't want to play by the rules," which it's very shocking to hear from Tom Brady under the Belichick system for so long when you feel so structured. But my question to you, and hearing that, you hate to hear that from anyone who feels like they can't speak their mind, but I also feel like whenever you choose to pursue something, whether that's professional football or any other kind of career, you give up some personal liberties.
Yeah.
Your perspective on him feeling like he can't say what he wants to say. Should he feel like he can say what he wants to say? Or as an athlete, that's your job to kind of pull back a little bit.
I mean, you're going to be scrutinized for everything you do. I mean, if you walk to the water fountain wrong, they're going to say, oh, he's not walking correct. I mean, it's all those things, and you got to understand that just comes with the territory.
Right.
I mean, look at LeBron James. LeBron James is the biggest public figure, one of the biggest public figures in the world. He can't say, if he says one thing wrong or he does his own thing, it's going to be scrutinized. So I think Tom Brady feels the exact same way, that I feels like I'm in a box because you got to be politically correct. We all have to be politically correct. We can get away with a lot of stuff, but Tom Brady can't. So if he says something out the box or does something, out of the norm, he's going to get scrutinized by everything he does.
But also, a lot of people who can say what they want don't have $1 million paychecks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then going back to the situation when he made the quote about how can you pick this guy over me, everybody ran with it.
Saying the word "guy" is a friendly way of putting it.
See, so
he used a little bit more colorful language.
I didn't say that bad way, but he said that because that's how he felt. He put it in a joking way, but deep down, that's exactly how he felt, because he's like, "You gonna pick that dude over me? But who's that dude?"
That's what we speculated on, and actually, I do want to get to that. So, Jared and I went back and forth about this. He initially thought it was Ryan Tannehill. Initially, I thought it was Jeff Darlington said a lot of people will deny it, but Tom Brady wanted to go to the Saints, or was closer to going to the Saints than a lot of people realized, which shocked me.
I can't believe it's Drew Brees. Drew Brees is a Hall of Famer,
and they're friends.
Friends.
From what I've seen from the outside looking in, they look like they're friends. Like, I could not believe that he would call Drew Brees by that word.
Exactly.
But from Jeff Darlington, he is in Tom Brady's camp.
It has to be Garoppolo or Tannehill.
Why do you think Tannehill?
This is just my opinion. I think it's just to get under Vrabel's skin.
You think?
Oh yeah. I mean, when he came here, when they came here for camp, they were jabbing right when he walked on the field. So that's probably a little jab for Mike Vrabel and J-Rock.
Okay, well that's what Jared thought. I wasn't so quite convinced, but I guess I'll give you a little bit more benefit of the doubt than I usually give Jared. Those are headlines with Caroline, and coming up next, we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive into what does it look like in a locker room in professional sports whenever you lose a guy who's your teammate, who's grown to be your friend. But before we get to that, allow me to let the fine folks out there know that ESPN 94.9 is the official English radio home of the Nashville Soccer Club. Listen in tomorrow night as Nashville SC takes on Philadelphia at Nissan Stadium. Pre-game starts at 6:45 p.m. and the match begins at 7 o'clock p.m. This is Stillman and Company. We are live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and on the Game Nashville app.
at our end of the year meeting, he was not happy with where he was at. I think it's fair to say we weren't happy. In my conversation with him today, I think we both acknowledged that, and I believe Victor is very appreciative and thankful for everything that's happened here in Nashville, and I think he needs a fresh start. And I can't speak for him, but if you do speak with him, I think he's okay with this. It just he needed something different, and this happens from time to time in sports, and where you see players get rejuvenated and maybe better. Maybe it's a better spot for him. I don't know. It just felt in talking to him, and I think he would acknowledge this, that it just didn't think it was going to work here anymore for a variety of reasons.
That was Predators general manager David Poile on the motivation behind trading Victor Arvidsson. And he said, hey, he wasn't happy here. He wasn't performing to the level that he wanted. The Predators organization wasn't getting much out of him that they expected, and it just felt like a trade that made sense. Get rid of Arvidsson, get some draft picks in return, instead of just losing him to the expansion draft. Now, Chris Sanders,
yes.
I know good and well that you are a former Titans wide receiver, that you are not a Predators insider at all. But I wanted to get your perspective on something, because there was a response on social media from Predators players following the trade. Mm-hmm. Philip Forsberg, who was on a line with Victor Arvidsson during their cup run, during their glory days, he posted on Instagram just a fat thumbs down. Ryan Johansson, who was the third part of that trio on that front line, posted on Instagram a picture of him and Victor Arvidsson and said, well, this turned into an awful day pretty quick. Not really sure what else to say, but Arv, I love you like a brother, and I know one thing. The Staples Center will be chanting Arvy, Arvy a whole lot. Can't wait to see you soon. So... a lot of sentiment on social media following Victor Arvidsson's exit. And the way that David Poile made it sounded like a mutual exit. Kind of like, when you're in a relationship with someone, I still love you. You're just not working for me anymore. I wish you for the best, but we don't work out anymore. That's kind of what it sounded from David Poile's perspective. But the players made it seem like it was a little bit different. Like they felt a little bit blindsided by it. From your perspective, you played college football. You played professional football. Yes. You've seen guys that you were close with in the locker room leave. What is that like? What is that feeling like? What is that sentiment like in the locker room whenever you see a guy go?
Yeah, number one, we understand that it's a business. Guys are going to come and go, but when you start building a relationship with guys and you sweat in camp, it's tough when you see them go. I think the toughest one that I saw, and I know Floyd Reese hates this, that that's the one thing he doesn't like about the business, is he's got to let some good people go. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not that Arvidsson was a bad guy, or the head coach was a bad guy. It's just they had a mutual respect for it, saying, you know what, it's just not going to work here. Mm-hmm. But when I was with the Tennessee Titans, Randall Godfrey, everybody loved Randall Godfrey. Big old linebacker, funny guy. Everybody loved him in the locker room. Everybody loved him in the meeting rooms, and he brought energy. And all of a sudden, you find out that he gets traded and he gets cut. It does something to the locker room, because you have one of your bright spots leave. You got one of your leaders leave. So when you have a guy like that brought so much energy to the locker room, brought so much energy to the defense, and even rejuvenated the offense, it's hard. Mm-hmm. It's really, really hard, because you build relationship with this guy, and these guys like each other. Mm-hmm. Even though it's business. I mean, even with Floyd Reese, when he had to cut me, I love Floyd Reese. But he had to do it because it was a business decision. I was making a lot towards the cap, and he had to get under the cap, so he had to cut me. So I have a great relationship with Floyd Reese. I love Floyd Reese, and I think the same thing with Arvidsson. He has a great relationship with the GM. Mm-hmm. It's just that this is not a good fit right now. He wasn't happy. He wasn't performing, so I got to let you go.
I think a lot of Predators fans were a little bit concerned after seeing that outpouring on social media from Ryan Johansson, from Philip Forsberg. They thought that, could this possibly cause an uproar in the locker room? Could they see these guys want to step away because Victor Arvidsson is leaving? Have you ever been pushed to that point where you saw a guy leave that you wanted to leave with him?
Yeah, I felt like that, but this is where I had to be a professional. Mm-hmm. We talk about guys being a professional. Being a professional is not finishing a sprint. Being a professional is not, being happy all the time. Being a professional is doing the right thing when it's uncomfortable. When you see your favorite guy like a D. Mace leave, or like a Kevin Dyson leave, guys that I played with and I sweat with and I bled with, it's a business decision. I got to be a professional. I still got to feed my family. I still got to work and make this team better. So, it's how you handle it. So if the guys in the locker room for the Preds are like, man, I'm not going to perform because Arvidsson's gone, you're not being a professional.
Right.
You got to be a professional at what you do. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it's painful. Yes, I love playing with my guys. I love being in the locker room. We had a thing on Saturday when I played with the Tennessee Titans. We were goofy. We did a thing called Get Sick Saturday. And what we do is we get a whole bunch of Krispy Kreme donuts and eat them and then practice. And whoever got sick wins. That's what we did. So build a relationship with those guys, and then all of a sudden you see those guys leave. You miss that. You don't miss, well, he caught 5 passes, I caught 6. And then, no, we miss the funny stuff. So the same thing with Arvidsson. He's going to miss his players. He's going to miss laughing in the locker room. He's going to miss when somebody did something funny in the locker room. All those things because you built a relationship. But at the end of the day, brother, I love you. Our families are going to be in contact with each other all the time. But as a professional, I got a responsibility. And I think with these guys in the locker room, with the rest of the guys that are there with the Predators, they have a responsibility when they sign that contract that I have to do my job. Even though my best friend left, even though the guy that I built a relationship with, I love you, but the thing about it is I have a responsibility. Why? Because I signed that contract.
And I think that as well, if it could possibly have a negative impact, if you have ever experienced a negative impact on the field, you have that go-to guy, you have this communication, this chemistry with one person on the field, and then you possibly lose that. Have you ever seen a negative impact on the field, and translating this to the Arvidsson trade on the ice, could it possibly have a negative effect on that Joe for that first line?
Yeah, that Randall Godfrey thing. Oh, Blaine Bishop, little short guy. Oh, Blaine Bishop was furious. I mean, he's throwing stuff in the locker room. He's getting upset because he understood the magnitude of what Randall Godfrey brought to this team. And that's why guys, are you seeing on social media, are standing up for Arvidsson, is because he brought so much to the team. And when you have a guy that's like that, you can turn it into a positive or you can turn it to a negative quickly. And if you start pointing fingers at the administration and pointing fingers to GM or pointing fingers at the head coach, you're going to lose the locker room. And if you lose the locker room, you're not going to win. You're not going to win a lot of games. I mean, if you look at the Predators, they're this close to winning a Stanley Cup championship. But if you let all the other stuff and all the distractions and all the business things get involved and seep in, you're going to lose the locker room and you're not going to be a very good team.
And that's tough because I feel like in every other facet of life, you look at your friends, maybe not necessarily with your family, but in a lot of groups that you surround yourself with, you're in charge of who comes into your life and who leaves your life. And in sports, in a lot of professional fields, you're not in charge of who comes in and comes out of your life. So that's a tough field to walk, but you don't think that there will be any sort of backlash, at least from your experience in a professional locker room and trades and being cut and whatever. You don't think that there would be a negative backlash in the Predators locker room from your experience.
But it all goes back to wherever the leader goes, that's where the follower is going to go. So if the leaders of that team or the leaders of that organization are pointing fingers, then they're going to follow suit. But if they say, you know what, this was a business decision that benefits the team, it doesn't feel good. It's kind of like this. It's kind of like, when I was young, my mom would make me eat vegetables. I hated vegetables. I mean, I don't even like carrot. If I look at a carrot, I'm going to throw it away. But she made me eat it because she knows the significance that it's going to make it better. That's the same thing with the Preds. Even though you don't like the situation that happened, maybe it's better for the team because you got two guys that say, you know what, it's not going to work here. And if you have two disgruntled people, you're going to lose the locker room. You're going to lose a lot of people.
Well, there you have it. Victor Arvidsson traded to the Los Angeles Kings yesterday for a 2021 second rounder, a 2022 third rounder. And while we saw some outpouring on social media from the remainder of the Jofa line, Chris Sanders says, hey, it's a business.
Yeah.
Coming up, we will get into your wheelhouse. We'll talk a little bit of Titans.
We talking about Titans?
Talking about them Titans.
Talking about the Titans. Here go them Titans.
And before we get into that, allow me to let y'all know that you can join 102.5 The Game tomorrow from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. for the Nashville SC pre-match party at the Hard Rock Cafe downtown. Party before the match on Broadway and get some game swag plus register tow and a pair of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. Then head over to Nissan Stadium for the 7 o'clock match. Get your tickets now for Nashville SC at NashvilleSC.com and tune in to the match on ESPN 94.9. Stillman and Company, we are live from the wholesaling studio powered by Rumblon.com. Caroline Fenton joined by forever Titans wide receiver Chris Sanders filling in for Jared Stillman. We've gotten into a bunch of NIL stuff, a little bit of Preds. Corey Curtis joined us earlier. But we're not going to have Chris Sanders on and not get in to the Tennessee Titans.
You talking about Titans?
We're talking about Titans. Yes, we are. And just your expectations going into what you have seen from OTA so far and in your overall thoughts about the Titans so far this season.
A lot of questions.
A lot of questions.
I got a lot of questions. I mean, the biggest question that I have is on defense. Mm-hmm. I mean, defense was, ranked last in a lot of things in third down. But I want to see how Vrabel, Bowen, and Schwartz are going to be able to turn this defense around. I mean, you got the players. You got Autry, you got Dupree, you got Farley out of the draft, you got Fulton, you got some great players. You got Simmons, you got Landry, you got all these guys. How is it going to look? Mm-hmm. Because we definitely need a pass rush. If you look at the Tennessee Titans last year, they had 19 sacks. I mean, that's like one a game, probably not even one a game. So how are they going to put pressure on the quarterback? How are they going to stop offense? And how are those three-headed monsters going to work together?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the defense is a massive question mark for everyone, given the defense last year. I mean, how could it get worse?
Yeah.
I mean, knock on wood. But one thing that feels like a sure thing is the offense. You mentioned that three-headed monster in A.J. Brown and Julio Jones and Derrick Henry. But Ryan Tannehill is another part of that offense. And you can't, Julio Jones and A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry can't eat unless Ryan Tannehill does his job. Now, on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zuban on ESPN Radio, Keyshawn Johnson gave his top 8, the first half, that upper echelon of AFC quarterbacks. He mentions Patrick Mahomes first, which, Patrick Mahomes first. He puts Josh Allen second, followed by Lamar Jackson, Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, Cam Newton, Carson Wentz, and Baker Mayfield. So he leaves Ryan Tannehill off of his top 8 list. Your initial reaction to that?
I mean, I think he's correct, and the reason why I say I think he's correct is because Tannehill is good for the Tennessee Titans, and then that's all you need. I mean, all that ranking and stuff is great, and who in the world thinks that Baker's better than Tannehill? He's not.
I wouldn't take Baker.
I wouldn't
over
take
Ryan
no
Tannehill.
because he's inconsistent. He'll play one game and throw for 400 yards. The next game he throws 4 touchdowns. He's pouting on the sidelines. I would take Tannehill is because he's better for the Titans. They'll run first, pass seconds, and what he does is he manages the game. He doesn't throw interceptions. He makes the right play. He throws the ball where only the receiver can catch the ball. So even though he's not in the top 8. He's a top receiver for the Tennessee Titans, and that's all you need. I mean, just like with Steve McNair, when Steve McNair first got in the league, he struggled a little bit. But once when the year we went to the Super Bowl, he wasn't the best quarterback in the league, but he was the best quarterback for the Tennessee Titans at that time. And you have all these weapons. You have A.J. Brown, you have Julio Jones, you have Ferguson, you have Henry, you have Evans, you have all these weapons. All you got to do is just manage the game and put the ball where the receiver and the running backs can play.
Exactly. And you mentioned that three-headed monster, and I think that's been one concern. And TD mentioned it in one of his recent articles on ESPN.com. He said his biggest question going into this season was, are there going to be enough balls to go around? Are there going to be enough balls to appease Julio Jones and A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry? And we talked about it earlier this week. That we don't think that would be an issue. But that's on Ryan Tannehill to manage the game, to be the one that delves out those balls and gets it where it needs to go. And I think that game manager kind of has a negative connotation in football. But in Ryan Tannehill's case, that's exactly what the Titans need, is someone to manage the game. And I think that's exactly what Ryan Tannehill can and will do for the Tennessee Titans offense.
I mean, you have a lot of weapons. And I'm going to go back to 99. I'm not comparing the team from 99 to now. But we kept 7 receivers that year. I mean, because we were all good. But the one thing that Kevin Dyson had, the one thing that Mason had, the one thing that Bird had, the one thing that Yancey Thickman had, the one thing that I had is everybody knew their role. And it would change week to week. So 1 week Dyson to catch 5, I catch 1. 1 week Mason to catch 4, I catch 0. I mean, it didn't matter because the whole vision was to get to the Super Bowl. So now you have Tannehill. You have all these weapons like a candy in the candy store. You got A.J. Brown. You got Julio Jones. You got Ferguson. You got Evans. You got Batson. You got Josh Reynolds. You got Fitzpatrick. You got McMath. You have all these pieces. But everybody has to know their role. My role might be just catching 2 balls a game. My role might be just, taking, 2 guys with me so another guy can catch the ball. Everybody has to be on the same page. So, the one thing I was concerned about, with Julio Jones, coming to the Tennessee Titans, he's an alpha. He's an alpha dog. He wants the ball. He wants to eat because he's that type of player. So what I did is I called Terry Robisky. Terry Robisky coached him in Atlanta. I said, Terry Robisky, tell me about Julio Jones. He said he's a team guy first. He said he wants to win, and he plays with authority, and you feel him on the field. That's all I need to know. Yeah. Because when you have a guy like that, that's a variable guy that says, you know what, I have a lot of talent, but when my number's called, I'm going to make plays.
And you mentioned knowing your role, and I think that Ryan Tannehill's role on this team very much so is being a leader.
Yep.
Being a leader is having a vision for exactly what that offense will look like. So here's Ryan Tannehill after OTAs and what exactly that vision is for this Titans offense.
Brian, considering all the new faces that are in your receiver room right now, how important have these OTAs and specifically now this week where it's a little bit more full speed out there, how important can these couple of days be to help you all get on the same page as you move towards training camp?
Yeah, just, as guys become more involved in what we're doing and guys get healthier, new additions, that'll be the real test for us as we head into training camp. Being able to come back full speed and get on the same page quickly with all the different things that we like to do in this offense is going to be crucial for us. So I don't know if these last couple of days are any more full speed. It's pretty much the same schedule as we've been having, but we got to take advantage of the time that we do have, no doubt about it.
So, not a ton from Ryan Tannehill. I think that's a classic Mike Vrabel, Tennessee Titans press conference. Yeah. But, you can say a lot without saying a ton.
Right.
And Ryan Tannehill's vision for this offense. And I would feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, I do too.
If I'm a Tennessee Titans fan, I would feel pretty good about where that offense is sitting.
And he said 2 key words. He said same page. Everybody has to be on the same page. Everybody can't do their own thing. Everybody has to be on the same page and have the same agenda. And that was the concern that I had about Julio Jones. Is he going to want to be on the same page when it's 3rd and 5 and he's getting double and they throw it to A.J. Brown, Ferkser, Batson? Is he going to still be excited in block? Just those little things, the little things. So if everybody's on the same page with Tannehill and all these slew of receivers that, man, it can be special, then now you have a recipe for success.
And being on the same page, you can't win without it.
You can't.
And that's kind of what we heard so much from Julio Jones and A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill is they're all on the same page about it's not about me. Yep. It's not about back of the jersey. It's about front of the jersey. And we mentioned this earlier this week, but I wanted to get into it a little bit more, is it's so easy to say that right now. Yeah. It's so easy to say that when you're in training camp, when someone just signed and you're getting acquainted, and it's really easy to have everyone on board. But when you start facing challenges, when you start to underperform, when your expectations aren't being met, it can be very easy to stop thinking name on the front of the jersey instead of the back of the jersey. Yeah. It gets difficult and tensions can get high.
Yeah.
So if the Titans do get into a certain position where they're underperforming or they're not meeting expectations, not that I'm saying that I think it's going to happen, but if they do get in that situation, at Tannehill as a leader, as knowing his role in this offense, what is he going to do about it? How do you avoid getting to a certain spot where you're not on the same page anymore?
Yeah, and it's one word that I'm going to say, and I'm explaining in a minute. Remember. And just like when you get married, you took pictures and you ate the cake and it was fun and we sing Kumbaya and y'all drinking strawberry daiquiris and you take that picture of that smile like, ooh, we having a good time. Now when it gets tough, you got to remember that moment. You got to remember, we took the picture, we had fun, but we got to fight through it. And you got to say, even though I'm not getting the ball, even though I got to block, even though I got to do the things that I'm not accustomed to doing, I've got to go back and remember that we started this thing, so we're going to absolutely finish this thing. And I think if everybody's on the same page, and I agree with you 100%, everybody's saying the correct lingo, everybody's saying, the things that they're supposed to say, the Mike Vrabel talk, which he does a great job. But what happens if you have A.J. Brown catching 30 balls and you have Julio Jones having only 10? How is he going to respond? How are you going to handle a situation where you drafted Dez Fitzpatrick in the 4th round and he's sitting on the bench? How is he going to respond? How is Josh Reynolds going to respond when he's the second on the depth chart when he came here to be the second receiver with A.J. Brown? So those are the things that guys had to be professional with, because you got to remember, these guys are in a position because they want to win. They worked hard and they're alpha dogs and they want to make plays. But just like what I tell my receivers, you have to put your pride. When you walk into this building, you got to set your pride at the door. Mm-hmm. And if guys can set their pride to the side and say, you know what, it's not about me. It's about the vision of Mike Vrabel. It's about the vision of J. Rob. It's the vision of this team. So now you collectively come together as a team and win some ball games.
Absolutely. Chris Sanders on the Tennessee Titans, and we'll get into a little bit more of it. And Keyshawn Johnson on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zuban didn't put Ryan Tannehill in his top half of AFC quarterbacks, and we didn't necessarily agree with it. But hey, if it's working for the Titans, don't fix it.
That's it.
And we will get into a little bit more of it because Keyshawn Johnson said something a little bit later in that same exact show that doesn't necessarily match up to his words about the top half of the AFC quarterbacks. You are listening to Stillman & Company. We are streaming live on Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch in the Game Nashville app.
Yeah, Mike, yesterday Todd said that he didn't want to see a Todd Downing offense. He wanted to see a Tennessee Titans offense. What is the identity with this group that you have now that you want the offense to go into camp and build towards?
I mean, I think that's, your identity is ultimately, what you put out there. And we could have ideas, and I think that we have ideas about what we want to be. I think efficient. I know that discipline is something that we always want to be. I think we want to be creative. I think we want to be physical. I hope that our style of, our effort and our finish is something that's going to stick out. And those are things that we believe in. We believe in those types of things. I want them to be prepared, but all obviously very efficient in how we handle things and the operation in which the speed in which we move at.
That was Mike Vrabel on his vision for the Titans this year. What is he looking for from his team. And we mentioned last segment that Keyshawn Johnson on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zuban listed his top 8 quarterbacks in the AFC, his top half of the AFC, and he puts Patrick Mahomes first, Josh Allen second. Those are two things that I don't think I can necessarily argue with.
Yeah.
But he does leave Ryan Tannehill off the list. And we mentioned Ryan Tannehill may not work on every single team, but what he does for the Tennessee Titans works. So if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Keyshawn Johnson, he's looking at stats. I mean, everybody looks at stats, and the stats tell the truth. But at the end of the day, it's more than just stats. I mean, look at Tannehill. He took a quarterback position that was really bad. Mariota did okay, but he took that position and made the position better, and it made the offense better, it made the defense better, and it made the whole collective organization better. Why? Because he performed good for the Tennessee Titans. I mean, if you look at the Tennessee Titans, they don't really get that much national love until they get into the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, so a lot of people in the industry don't really know about the Titans because they don't hear about them because they're not on TV. But now when they start getting those national games and now when they start beating up people, then that's when they're going to get the attention that they need.
And you mentioned national love, which I think is an interesting point because Keyshawn Johnson, after he listed his top 8 quarterbacks in the AFC, he went on a little bit of a rant about the team that he thought was most overrated in the NFL. And we'll have that audio for you shortly. But he mentioned that the Titans, he thinks, is the most overrated team in the NFL. He goes into the Julio Jones signing. He said the Titans signed Julio Jones, and all of a sudden everyone was talking about the Titans as a Super Bowl contender. Now, I think it's interesting that Keyshawn Johnson does not name the Titans quarterback in his top half of the AFC quarterbacks, yet says that the Titans are the most overrated team in the NFL. How does that match up?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's just talking off his cuff. He probably had too many of those Jello shots at the Mississippi State
He was probably
he probably had 200.
He contributed to the 2,000 that Mississippi State had.
Yeah, but I think the reason why he's saying that the Tennessee Titans are overrated is because they did good on offense, but they couldn't stop nobody on defense. So I think he's probably looking at it as overall game. But how can you say they're overrated when you have a 2,000-yard running back, you have a 1,000-yard receiver, and almost had another receiver that had 1,000 yards, which was Corey Davis, and you have one of the most prolific offenses in the league. So how are you overrated when you're consistently making plays? And they win 11 games? How can you be overrated if you win 11 games? I mean,
won the division.
You won a division. You won the AFC South. So you can't be overrated and accidentally win the AFC South and accidentally have a 200-yard, 2,000-yard rusher, or accidentally have a receiver have 1,000 yards, or accidentally have one of the most prolific offenses in the league last year. It's not an accident.
Keyshawn's a wide receiver. He should be all about the wide receiver hype, shouldn't he?
Right.
With the Julio Jones edition. And Keyshawn's got to feel where's that wide receiver love, Chris?
Because it ain't about him. It ain't about him. It ain't about Keyshawn Johnson. It's about Julio Jones, and it's about A.J. Brown. It's about this team about to be prolific. And in just my opinion, he doesn't like it. So, why wouldn't you be excited about teaming up with A.J. Brown and bringing Julio Jones over? I mean, just saying that with the hair that I have on my head, and I don't have that much hair, but it kind of stands up. But just hearing that brings excitement. Just hearing that we have a caliber player like A.J. Brown, and then you have Julio Jones, then you have Derrick Henry, then you have Tannehill, then you have Lawan at the offensive line, then you have Saffold. I mean, just listen to the list of
the
this
sheer star
players.
power.
That's what I'm talking about. But, just like I'm saying, it's good on paper. And the thing about it is, and we was listening to Mike Vrabel, they still haven't established the identity that they want right now. And identity is not formed until you get into camp. We don't, last year they got the identity. They didn't have that much time in practice, but they understood that they were run first, pass second. We don't know what it's going to look like this year. We don't know if it's going to be pass first, play action first, or run second. We just don't know because once they get in camp, they'll get an idea of what the identity is.
And I also wonder, how can the Titans be an overrated team when, like you said, they really don't get much national love?
They don't. And that's the problem. It's because they don't get the national love. I mean, what teams are we talking about? Kansas City. Who are we talking about? Buffalo Bills. Who are we talking about? NFC, the Saints. And every single time. I mean, even last year or 2 years ago when they beat Baltimore in the playoffs, They were talking about how bad Baltimore did as opposed to the Tennessee Titans winning. You see what I'm saying? Well, Lamar was off, and he was this, and all that crazy stuff. But they went in Baltimore and ran through their lips and ran through their face. So, the reason why they're not getting that exposure and getting all the people to be on their side is because I think they just don't see him.
And I understand. If I can infer a little bit of what Keyshawn Johnson was saying there is the adding Julio Jones does not instantly make the Titans a Super Bowl caliber. I think a Super Bowl contender. I think that the Titans are a very good team, and adding Julio Jones only makes them better. Yes. Only makes their potential even higher. Only makes A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry's jobs even easier. It makes this offense even more threatening. But it doesn't instantly turn the Titans from what they were last year into a Super Bowl caliber team. So I can understand that if he's hearing rumblings that, all of a sudden the Titans are instantly going to win the Super Bowl, I don't think that's necessarily correct. I think that the Titans are getting closer. I think that if the Titans make it to the AFC Championship and lose, I'll be satisfied.
Yeah.
What is your expectation for the Titans this year, adding Julio Jones?
I think if they don't win the AFC South and go to Super Bowl, I think it's a bust.
You think if they don't go to the Super Bowl, it's a bust?
I think it's a bust because and the reason why I say that is because you have all the pieces in place. Let's just break it down. Quarterback, Tannehill, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Running back, the best. A.J. Brown, top 10 receiver. Julio Jones.
Yeah.
Then
enough said.
Then offensive line, Saffold, Lawan, Lamb. And then you got the drafty, I can't pronounce his name, the drafter we got in the second round.
Caleb Farley?
No,
Dylan Radins?
Radins. We got him. I didn't pronounce that name. But you have all that star power. You have all and then let's go to the defense. You got Simmons. You got Autry. You got Dupree. You got Farley. You got the kid from LSU, the defensive back.
Christian Fulton.
And then you got Jack Rabbit Jenkins. You had what else do you need?
But my only issues with the defense there, because I think that offense, it took a step up from last year, very much so.
True.
But I think with that defense on personnel wise, when you're looking at names, there is more star power this year than there was last. But I do have concerns about Bud Dupree, about Caleb Farley.
I agree.
All injury based. Can Bud Dupree get out there week one? We saw in an article that an NFL doctor said that Bud Dupree looks nowhere near totally healthy. That he doesn't expect Bud Dupree to get out there in week one.
Why are you trying to scare me like that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I'm trying to prepare you for the worst, but hope for the best.
But I agree with you. And, it's funny because you look at those videos, they say Dupree is back. He's jumping on boxes of weight, which is great. Yeah. I mean, that's outstanding. But you don't have a 300-pound lineman, on you. And then you got the situation with Farley and with his back. And I had the same back situation, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but that ended my career. I mean, I wasn't
Mark Howard called you our resident back doctor.
Yeah, but
our resident medical expert, Chris Sanders.
And the thing about it is with Farley is we haven't seen any signs of him being on the field. He wasn't there in OTAs. We haven't seen any video surface. So those are the things that concern me. And I agree with you. Dupree's a big concern because at his position, when he's an outside linebacker and sometimes he puts his hand in the dirt and rushes the quarterback, when you watch how violent he runs, when you watch how violent he stops and turns, that's the reason why he tore his ACL. So do you think in the back of his mind that when he starts doing all that and trying to be forceful, is he going to have the mental capacity, but the mental toughness to say, I hurt my knee, but I'm still going to give that same effort? I mean, those are the things you got to fight because when I hurt my knee and I hurt my back, even though in my mind I was thinking I had the confidence to do it, but when I actually went out there and ran routes, I was still a little hesitant because I hurt my back.
Yeah, exactly. And that defense, I think, is exactly what you. Chris Sanders, back doctor.
And then, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
go ahead.
I think one of the, and a lot of people may disagree with me, I think one of the best acquisitions that we got on the offseason was Autry from Indianapolis. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because he just made that defense better. He made Simmons better. He made Landry better. He made Evans better. And the reason why is because he eats up the double team. And if you have a guy that eats up the double team and you get one-on-one with Simmons out there, who's going to block Simmons? Jeffrey Simmons. Who's going to block that big man, the Hulk? So That was the best acquisition for me because he just made your defense better because he made everybody better by chewing up those double teams.
And we mentioned this earlier, and in TD in a recent ESPN.com article, TD said that Julio Jones was the best offseason acquisition. Maybe it was Joe Rexford. I don't know. Somebody said that Julio Jones was the best offseason acquisition, and I just have to disagree.
I disagree
because
too.
Julio elevates something that's great, and Julio has made the Tennessee Titans a national conversation team. But you look at what was good and what was bad last year. Offense was good. The defense was bad. The offense is now up here. If you're looking in the stream, the offense is elevated. The defense goes from in the pits to not so much in the pits anymore. So I think that those additions on the defense are really the most valuable thing for the Titans because they're not a sexy name like Julio Jones. They're not going to be catching balls in the end zone, but they're the ones that are going to bring the Titans from an AFC South championship team to a potential AFC championship team. Because if you were able to perform that well last year with a defense that was just absolute hot garbage, then those defensive additions are going to be the difference.
I mean, if you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, their offense was prolific. And they didn't have a top 10 defense, but what they did is they got a couple of stops once in a while. And if you get a couple of stops once in a while with that prolific offense and they're scoring points, that's a win-win situation. Look at the Tennessee Titans. If they just get a couple of stops, if they get off the field on third down. I mean, they were last in third down getting off the field. But if you have maybe 6 or 7 of those getting off third down, you put the ball in Tannehill's hands. You put the ball in A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, Ferguson, all those guys' hands. You just went from a good team to being a great team by just getting a couple of stops.
Mm-hmm. And we'll go to your phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have Titans thoughts, Titans questions for Chris Sanders, Ben texts in and says, hot take for a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Our top 4 corners will miss a combined 23 games this year.
Whoa. That's scary.
That's scary. And then you're looking at Jackrabbit Jenkins, who's on the older side. You're looking at Caleb Farley, who's coming into his NFL career with a back issue, the same one that you said ended your career. It's not a good look.
I mean, it's tough, but I think another key acquisition is Elijah Molden. I mean, he reminds me of a quick corner that this feistiness. I mean, he's going to fight to the end, and when you get guys like that, that's going to help the defense. But if you help the secondary. But if you look at last year, when you're getting 36 touchdowns thrown on you, 36. I'm not talking about 5. I'm talking about 36. I'm gonna say it how my mom is 36. 36. And that means your secondary has to improve because if you look at the AFC South or you look at the overall offenses in the league, it's a passing offense. And if your secondary struggles, you're going to get eaten up all day long. And with the aggressiveness of the defense to where sometimes they want to go man-to-man, we got some fast wide receivers, and we play some great wide receivers this year for these teams that we play.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll take your calls, take your texts, and coming up next, I'm going to pick Chris Sanders' brain a little bit about some things that may be true, some things that may be false for the Titans this season. You are listening to Stillman & Company. We're streaming on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, and on the Game Nashville app.
Let's talk about overrated. This is something that only makes everybody angry, and that's why we love doing it. Let's give one pick for each conference on somebody you think is overrated. We'll start with Keyshawn. Keyshawn, let's go to the AFC. Who do you have as an overrated team coming into this season?
I think a lot of people are putting a lot on the Tennessee Titans. They have a marginal defense, actually very marginal defense. Offensively, they rely heavily on Henry to run the football. Because they went out and got Julio Jones at the receiver position, I think everybody is kind of like, oh, my God, Tennessee. It's like, hold on. They're not going to all of a sudden start throwing the ball all over the lot. They're going to basically be the offense that they were a year ago. Julio Jones comes in. They're not going to just decide to shut down A.J. Brown and focus on throwing the ball to Julio Jones. So just chill out. You still have a tough a tough opponent within the division in the Indianapolis Colts. Baltimore's there in the conference. You got the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chargers are in the conference. The Browns are in the conference. The Bills, the Pats are all in the conference. So I would slow down on the hype train of the Tennessee Titans just because they acquired one of the great receivers in NFL history in Julio Jones.
He's mad at you. Is he mad at you?
I don't know what I did to offend Keyshawn Johnson.
He was talking
He's
about
mad at you.
He was talking about his mom or something. She said something. Jeez.
That was Keyshawn Johnson on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zuban saying the Titans are overrated, saying, hey, Titans fans, slow your roll just because you acquired Julio Jones. You still got some tough opponents in the AFC, but hey, news flash for you, Keyshawn Johnson. I think Titans fans are well aware of how difficult the AFC is and how tough of a road it is going to be if they're going to end up on top of the division.
Now, there's one thing that I agree with him is Indianapolis is going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that 100%. But, if Julio Jones plays like Julio Jones, I mean, I'm telling you, it's going to be a recipe for success. Yes, we have A.J. Brown, we have Henry, we have those other guys. But just like you said earlier, he just made this Tennessee Titans offense better. So, yeah, the excitement's here. Now, if A.J. Brown gets hurt and Julio Jones gets hurt, then now we're in trouble. So let's just cross our fingers that don't happen.
So I've got a few questions for you, Chris Sanders. We're going to play a little game.
Let's go.
A little game called Red Light, Green Light, Yellow Light. I'm going to read Chris Sanders a few statements, a few truths that he may think are true, may think are totally false. So he'll give me the green light if he agrees with it. He will give me the red light if he says, slow down. No, absolutely not. He'll give me the yellow light if he's not quite sure. He'll be able to figure out after camp. So my first question for you, I guess statement for you, Chris Sanders.
Yes.
Julio Jones is the best offseason move by the Titans.
Red light.
Why?
And the reason why I say red light is because the offense wasn't the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think the defense was the problem. And I think the best acquisition I talked about earlier was Autry. Autry just made the whole defense better. He made Simmons, Evans better, all those guys better. Yeah, it was a good move by, the Tennessee Titans by getting Julio Jones. Outstanding player, but is a Hall of Fame wide receiver, which is great. But the problem was the defense. And I think that we had to address those issues, and I think the Tennessee Titans addressed it by getting Autry.
And, we mentioned that last segment because I think Julio Jones is a fantastic addition to the Tennessee Titans. How could you think any other way? But when it comes to the best offseason move, not the one that had the biggest headlines, not the one that made the biggest splash, but the one that is best for the Tennessee Titans, and it's a defensive addition.
See, that you said the key word, what was best for the Tennessee Titans and what's best for the team. Yep. The big name is great. Julio, I mean, flat out outstanding. I mean, he's a prolific receiver. He's outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
But
he's got awesome jerseys.
Awesome jersey. I might get 11. What number is he, 2?
He's 2.
I'm going to get a jersey, number 2 jersey. But the best acquisition was Autry because if you look at what he did with the Indianapolis Colts, he chewed up double teams and allowed Leonard and all those guys to be free and go one-on-one.
Mm-hmm. My next statement for you, Chris Sanders, you give me a red light, a green light, or a yellow light. The Titans' defense will be significantly better.
I say green light.
Green light, significantly better.
Can I take that back, please?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll allow it.
Yellow light.
Okay, that's where I'm feeling too. I'm feeling a yellow light.
It all depends on the key guys being healthy. Mm-hmm. Farley has to be healthy because he's a shutdown corner. You have Dupree who sacks the quarterback. Are they healthy? Those are the question marks. And then we talk about the secondary by giving up 36, touchdowns by receivers. So even though we had some good acquisitions, there's still some uneasiness because if you look at the Tennessee Titans last year, they only had 19 sacks. Mm-hmm. You're way at the bottom. You don't have one way, and that's to go up. So I would say yellow light. it could happen, but I still don't know.
That's how I feel. I think that it's going to depend on the health of Caleb Farley and Bud Dupree. That's a big part of it. And I think also one reason for me, while I'm not giving it a 100% green light, because I think there were some additions to the Titans defense that absolutely will make it better than it was last year. One of my biggest concerns is Shane Bowen. Can Shane Bowen lead this defense? He was making the calls last year, and we saw what happened with the Titans defense last year. And there are so many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to the Titans defense. Mike Vrabel, former defense by Mike Vrabel and Jim Schwartz. What exactly is Jim Schwartz's role in this defense? Is it going to be that there are so many alpha personalities on this defense that it's a bad thing?
Yeah, I mean, you have a three-headed monster, and when it's 4th and 5, and the opposing offense is going for it, who's going to be the voice to say we're running this defense? Who's going to be? Is it going to be Schwartz? Is it going to be Vrabel? Is it going to be Bowen? It's kind of like this, I like to use illustrations. I like to watch Godzilla, right? I don't know if you remember watch Godzilla, but when Godzilla was fighting the three-headed monster, Godzilla started winning. So the three-headed monster started getting frustrated, and it started biting each other. So what's going to happen if the Tennessee Titans start to go 0-2, 0-3, is there going to be some biting going on with words? So that's what I'm concerned about. I'm not saying they're going to do that because you have 3 alpha males. You have Mike Vrabel that will bite your ear off if you have one. You got Schwartz, who won a Super Bowl with Philly, and then you have Bowen, who knows his stuff. So what is it going to be when it's 4th and 5 and the game is on the line? Who is going to be the voice to say, you know what, we're running this defense, or is it going to be the collective of 3 to say, you know what about this, what about this, what about that, and come together collectively and make that call.
It's the same thing that same concern that TD brought up in his article that we have talked about is the 3-headed monster on offense. Are there going to be enough balls to please everyone? True. Nobody's talking about that 3-headed monster who's leading the defense in Mike Vrabel, Jim Schwartz, and Shane Bowen, because it could have the same adverse effects that we're worried about on offense. My next statement for you. Derrick Henry gets a majority of the touches on offense.
I would say yellow light.
Yellow light.
And the reason why I say yellow light is because the addition of Julio Jones. I mean, it takes the pressure off A.J. Brown, but also it takes the pressure off of Derrick Henry. I mean, if you look at the last couple of years, I mean, he's had over 300-some yard carries a game, so that's a lot to be putting on a running back. So with the addition of Julio Jones, I think sometimes you're going to see more passes on first down, and when you see more passes on first down, that takes away the carries from Henry. Now, if the passing game struggles, then you may see Henry, get the ball more. So it's kind of that situation. That's why I say yellow light, because of the addition of Julio Jones.
I think that is going to be huge for kind of lightening the load on Derrick Henry, but I give it a green light. I think this Titans offense is still very much so a run-first offense. And while adding Julio Jones adds an extra element and an extra depth in the backfield, I'm not quite convinced that it's all it's going to take is Julio Jones to completely shift this Titans offense. My next thing for you. Bud Dupree gets more sacks than Jadeveon Clowney.
Absolutely. Green light.
That's the greenest light there ever was.
Man, green. I can't see. It's green.
It's like a neon green light. It's blinding me.
How many sacks did he have last year?
0.
Exactly. He might trip over the quarterback and get a sack. I mean, he's got him. I think Dupree, it all depends on how healthy he is. But even him not being healthy, he's still going to get a sack or a half a sack somewhere. But if he comes back from that knee injury full throttle like he did with the Pittsburgh Steelers, man, it just made your defense better. My goodness. I mean, he's one of those guys that just sicks the quarterback. He's ferocious. And the thing about it is he hustles on every play. Even if the ball's on the other side of the field, he's running down and he's tackling him. So I think that, to answer your question, I think he's going to get more sacks than Clowney.
We talked about, Keyshawn Johnson saying that the Titans are overrated. Can we talk about how overrated Jadeveon Clowney is?
The reason why I say that is because everybody thought that he was a sack guy. He's not a sack guy. He's a run stopper. If you look at, everybody goes back to that play when he played against the Michigan Wolverines and he knocked the dude's helmet off. That was a running back.
Yeah.
So he didn't have too many sacks. If you look at when he was with the Texans, I think his most sacks in the year was like maybe 8. So he's not really a rush guy. He's a guy who sets the edge and a guy who stops the run. So everybody was like, oh, Clowney. Everybody got caught up in the name, but didn't get the production. So, and I even felt, hey, let's get Clowney. But then I went back and looked at some of his film in college, and I looked some of his film with the Texans. I didn't see a lot of sacks. I saw a lot of run stops. I saw a lot of disruptions. I saw a lot of things like that. But I didn't see a lot of sacks. And the reason why he didn't get a lot of sacks is because he's not a sack guy. Just like what was it, Dennis? The coach Dennis from Minnesota Vikings. He's like, we are what he thought he was. We are what we thought what's his name was, because he wasn't a sack guy. He was a run stopper.
615-737-1025. I am asking Chris Sanders certain Titans statements, if he agrees with them, if he doesn't agree with them, or if he's not completely sold. So if you have a red light, green light, or yellow light statement for Chris Sanders, text into our text line, call into our call line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Coming up next, we'll get into more of this and your Titans calls and questions. But before we get to that, I'll let you know that you can go to theGameNashville.com to check out Nashville's best deals. Deals happening now include a $50 Bad Axe Throwing Nashville gift card for only $25. Buy one, get one free for Beach Bend Park and Splash Lagoon. Get yours now while they last at theGameNashville.com.
Let's just talk real for a second. One of the big reasons you're there is the Titans pass rush was not good last year. Just objectively, it was 30th in the league. It didn't get the job done. It didn't get a lot of sacks. So where do you come out on this, Bud? Because I know a lot of pass rushers will say, look, it's not all about the sack numbers. I affect the game in a lot of different ways. Don't get too distracted by sack numbers. But you are there to get sacks. So what is your job? Like they paid you a lot of money. They're very excited to bring you in. What is your job when you do hit the field?
I mean, you said it, you hit it on the head. You know, anytime you get paid as a pass rusher, you need to go in, get sacks, make big plays in the run game. Be an all-around player. You don't just come in to be just to be a one-trick pony and just do pass rush, man. You got to be able to be a tone setter on the edge as well. Swarming to the ball, stopping the run. Involving your teammates, man, getting everybody hyped up. That's what it is, man, and that excites everybody around you, man. This is a big part of the game, in today's game especially. So we got to go out and be tough as nails. Go out there and just play to our best ability.
That was Bud Dupree on his role with the Titans. He's saying, yeah, I mean, my job is to go out there and get sacks, but that's not it. I'm not a one-trick pony. I can go out there, I can hype my team up, I can do what I need to do to get this team a win, and I'm sure the Titans organization loves hearing that they just brought in a guy in Bud Dupree that doesn't see his only job as being sacking the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Mike Vrabel when he first got with the Tennessee Titans, he said he wants versatile players. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want one guy just doing one thing good. You got to be able to do a couple of things, and if you look at all over the board, Dupree is one of those guys. I mean, he can be an outside linebacker. He can put his hand in the dirt and rush the quarterback. So when you have a guy that's versatile like that, he just makes your defense better. So I'm excited to see what he's going to do, but I'm still concerned about that knee. Now, if he would have hurt his ankle or hurt an arm or something like that, I can understand. But when you're talking about an ACL, when he's so explosive, and you stop and you start and you do all that, and you got a 300-pound tackle or guard on you, tackle or tight end on you, it's totally different. Mm-hmm. So I want to see how he responds in camp.
And I think one thing that should put Titans fans at ease is it's an ACL tear. Happens to a lot of people. Happens to Ryan Tannehill. Doesn't mean it's okay. Doesn't mean that you love it. But at least, Bud Dupree isn't dealing with something that could be potentially career-ending.
Right. I agree with you 100%, but the only thing about it is when you hurt a knee, it all depends on what position you are. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got Lewan that's coming off a knee injury. I think he's going to play well at the beginning because all he's got to do is do pass block and run block. Mm-hmm. But you're talking about Dupree who plays violent. Yeah. When you have a player that plays so explosive, so you stop and start because if you look at when he hurt his knee, he was planning so hard that his knee gave out. So how is he really going to keep doing that if he can't play explosive?
Yeah, absolutely. And we mentioned in the last segment, we're playing a little game of red light, green light, yellow light. If there's a statement that Chris totally agrees with, we're giving it the green light. Absolutely not. We'll give it the red light. Yellow light, we're not quite sure. And we said, Bud Dupree gets more sacks than Jadeveon Clowney. The greenest light there ever was.
Absolutely.
Our next statement for Chris is this. The Titans win the AFC South.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Chris.
I'm going with yellow light.
Okay, yellow light. Why?
The reason why I'm going with yellow light is everybody's talking about him, and I know you may disagree with me, but I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I say the Indianapolis Colts is the reason why they've been struggling is because they haven't had a quarterback. They had Rivers last year that, he was old and he looked like he was shot putting the ball to the receiver. But now you got Wentz. And the reason why I say Wentz is the common denominator. And the reason why I say he's the common denominator is it scares me because they're in the same situation that the Tennessee Titans were 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. You had Tannehill coming in that had to prove himself. They were talking about how Tannehill couldn't stay healthy, how Tannehill couldn't make plays or he couldn't win the big game and all these things. And then all of a sudden he has a breakout season and he does great with the Tennessee Titans. Then now you have Wentz. Everybody's saying the exact same thing, that you're terrible. You haven't played well since 2017. You're always hurt. You're injury prone. All these things that he's hearing, he's creating an edge now. So if he goes out there and plays even slightly as good as he played in 2017, that's a dangerous team.
I'm giving this the green light. And because I think you're living in 2017, Chris Sanders. Carson Wentz has not been worth anything since the year 2017, and I think that a lot of people are getting caught up on the possibility of what he could be in Indianapolis. And that is what we don't know. That's the unknown, is he could develop. He could totally thrive in Indianapolis, but I'm not going to count on that. What I do know is that this Titans offense is going to be elevated to a totally different level. We don't know that about the Indianapolis Colts, so I'm not willing to say that they're going to beat the Titans in the AFC South. And another thing is, you look at why Carson Wentz left the Eagles. Mm-hmm. They didn't like him there. The players said they wanted Jalen Hurts over Carson Wentz. They said he was a bad leader. They said that he lost his team. So I think that he could potentially go to a new team and turn over a new leaf and develop that trust in his team. Mm-hmm. But the past has shown me, since 2017, Carson Wentz isn't what he used to be.
And sometimes you need a fresh start, and sometimes you learn about becoming a better teammate. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna give you an illustration. If you look at Kobe Bryant, rest his soul, when he was a young player, it was all about him. Mm-hmm. But then when somebody talked to him and said, you got to get your other teammates involved and still be the star player, then that's when his game elevated. Mm-hmm. So now Carson Wentz maybe sat down and did an evaluation on his life and say, you know what, I got to be a better leader. I got to include, my receivers, my offensive line, talk to the defense, talk to the coaches, and build a relationship with them so they can gain my trust. Mm-hmm. So now when you have a fresh start and you have a clean slate, Now you can go out there and perform with no pressure. And I'm going to talk about a guy who I really respect to the most is Derrick Henry. When Derrick Henry was struggling and everybody was telling him that, he runs side to side, he's too big, he's playing too soft, and then Eddie George comes and talks to him and say, listen, man, hey, you're too big and you're too physical, you're too strong to go out there and run like that. That's all the jolt that you need to get you to that next level. Then after Eddie George said that, Henry had a great year, and then next year after that, he gets 2,000 yards. So I'm just kind of afraid that could happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen with Wentz, to where somebody sits down and talks to him. Frank Wright, the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, sits him down and say, listen, where do you want to go from here? What's your vision for this team? How are you going to win the trust of your receivers? How are you going to win the trust of the defense? How are you going to win the trust of your offensive coordinator? How are you going to win the trust? Let's put that aside of what happened in Philadelphia, and let's start with a clean slate, and let's go win a championship. That's what I'm afraid of.
I think that is absolutely a possibility. And
it scares me.
I would be more than happy to walk my words back, but I got to see it before I do
I
that.
agree with you 100%.
Yep. My next statement for you, the Titans will end up re-signing tight end Delaney Walker.
I say red light.
Okay.
And the reason why I say red light is, if you look at the reason why they let him go, is because he was injury prone. And if you sign the guy to a certain amount of money, you want him to perform for that money. And maybe he comes in with a 1-year deal to earn it. But I don't think you sign a guy that the last couple of years he was here was consistently hurt. And I'm not saying that a knock. That's just the nature of the beast.
That's just how that's football.
That's just how football is. But I don't think you sign him. I think you wait until some more cuts come out and try to get a different tight end. But I just don't think, the Tennessee Titans are going in that direction. I say red light.
I agree with you. I saw that he went to tight end university, put on by George Kittle and Travis Kelce. He was on Talking with TD this past week, and sounds like he's in great spirits. He went to tight end university for a great player, and he wants to land somewhere, but I just don't think that plays to the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
We'll go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Jeff has got a question for you.
Come on, Jeff.
He said the 17-game schedule is good for the NFL. Red light, green light, yellow light.
I think I say red light. And the reason why I say red light is because you got to remember we play 4 games in the preseason. You got 16 games in the regular season. You add another one, that's too many games. I mean, you're going to get players hurt. Yeah. And just imagine, you play that extra game and you have a chance to go to the playoffs or whatever, and you get your star player hurt because of that 17th game because your body wears down. I just think it's not good for the NFL. I know it's about money, but you got to take care of these guys' body for the long run.
I think it's good for the people who will cash in on this extra game, whether it's the networks, whether it's the personnel, the front offices of the NFL. It's a great thing for them. They'll get their payday.
Oh, yeah.
But I think I'm with you in that, yes, it's one extra game.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, it's a small percentage of what the entire season looks like, but adding even more pressure onto those bodies, and all it takes is one game to get hurt.
That's it. That's 21
It takes one game to get hurt.
Game.
Look at 2020. How many players did we see fall and get carted off the field with an injury? A lot.
First week of the game. First week of the schedule.
And kind of scary injuries,
scary.
too. You look at Joe Burrow. You looked at Dak Prescott. Players that had just those videos that made you cringe and you wanted to look away from. So I know it's such a small percentage of the season, but in the grand scheme of things, one extra game, it's extra pressure on your body.
Yeah.
It's another trip. It's another plane ride. And when you look into the playoffs, too, that's even more on your body.
Okay, check this out. Let's just go through the preseason. How many? I'm gonna see if you know your math. How many games we have in the preseason?
4.
How many games we have regular season?
Now 17.
Okay, what's that add up to?
21.
Okay, what if you need 3 games to go to the Super Bowl?
24.
That's 24 games.
24 games.
On your body. That's a lot. See, I went to Ohio State. I would have said 7. Well, no, I'm just kidding. No, but that's a wear and tear in the physical nature of the game. I mean, look at this. Let's just go through the week. When you're playing the game on Sunday, you come back Monday, you practice, you're off Tuesday, and then Wednesday you're trying to recoup to get back to Sunday. Then add another game to that. That just wear and tear on your body. And even though, I agree with you 100%, it's good for people making money, but it's not good for the guys on their bodies.
I mean, I went rock climbing the other day, and I was down for like 2 or 3 days. I mean, I'm not an NFL player. I'm an NFL player, but I climbed a few walls, and I thought, awesome. Oh wow, no, I should be good for the week. You have some statements for me.
Oh, I got you now.
Okay, all right. Yeah, put me on the hot seat.
Okay.
Put me on the hot seat.
Can red light, green light, yellow light?
Okay.
I don't know if that's the right order, but check this out. Can Mike Vrabel, Bowen, Schwartz improve this defense? They were bad on third down, but can they improve this defense from worst to first? Ooh, that's the pressure right there. It's cooking.
Yellow light.
Why?
Because I don't know who's going to be in charge. Because I think that there are too many cooks in this defensive kitchen. I think that this defense absolutely has the possibility to be much better. I mean, you just look at the star power that they've added. You look at the talent that they have added. And I think it also depends on those injuries. Caleb Farley, for me, is kind of an X factor. If you have a healthy Caleb Farley out there week 1, and he can be what everyone was calling him in the draft, the best corner in this year's draft, then yeah, absolutely the Titans have the possibility to maybe not have the best defense in the league, but hey, I mean, you move up to 13, 12, 11, 10, that's a heck of a lot better than 29.
That's a great point.
So injuries and defensive personnel, I'm giving that a yellow light.
All right, let's go to the offense.
All right.
Can the offensive line be dominant this year and get Henry another 2,000 yards? Ooh, the pressure is on. It's in the kitchen.
Red light.
Tell me why.
And I think it's not on the offensive line and on Henry. I think that the shelf life of running backs is far too short. And how many back-to-back 2,000-yard rushing seasons have you ever seen in your day? Zero. And I think that Derrick Henry is a talent that you haven't seen before. I mean,
have you seen his workouts?
He's a beast. Okay. All right. One thing, I'll go off on a tangent a little bit here about the workouts that I see on social media. You got a chain on, and you're hanging from ropes, and people are throwing water balloons at you. I mean, I've seen it from Alvin Kamara. I've seen it from so many players across the league. You can do a lot for the gram. You can do a lot of flexing for the gram.
I agree.
I think that Derrick Henry is a generational talent.
Unbelievable.
But when it comes to the shelf life of a running back, I think that the sentiment of NFL not for long rings most true for running backs. I think that Derrick Henry is going to have a 12 to 1,500 yard season. Just because he doesn't get to those 2,000 yards doesn't mean it's a failure. 12 to 1,500 yard season for a running back is an outstanding season. I don't think he can do it back to back.
Next question.
Got you.
Simmons, Autry, Dupree, Evans, Landry. Can this defense pressure the quarterback?
Green light.
Green light. What? You said it with some stank on it too.
Green light.
Tell me why.
I mean, these are some dogs that you have on the defensive line. These are hungry guys, and you bring in these new guys as well. You mentioned Carson Wentz coming into a new team and wanting to prove himself. And of course, that quarterback position is different. You feel like you have to prove yourself a little bit more when you're the leader of the team. But I mean, you brought in Danico Autry, you brought in Bud Dupree, who is cashing in
yes, he is.
on these Tennessee Titans paychecks. So I say yes, absolutely. They're coming in with something to prove. And I think that pressuring the quarterback is going to be the number one factor to improving this Tennessee Titans defense.
Last question for you. You're actually
right.
doing pretty good.
Thank you.
Farley, Jenkins, Byard, Fulton. Can this defensive secondary be solid and be one of the best in the league next year?
Oh.
That's hot in the kitchen.
Yellow light.
Oh.
Yellow light.
Okay.
Because the sheer talent that you in those four names could totally, I would give it a green light. Caleb Farley's injury scares me. Caleb Farley's injury ended your career.
Yeah. Thanks.
Christian Fulton. Yeah, sorry to remind you. Christian Fulton hasn't seen a ton of NFL time. I covered him in my time at LSU, and he was an incredible defensive back. I mean, it's not called DBU for nothing. But so I know that he can do it. He just doesn't have a ton of NFL experience. And when you're going out there and you're going up against some of the, week one, you're going up against D-Hop and you haven't seen a ton of NFL time, that scares you a little bit. Janoris Jenkins is not the youngest person in the world. So the potential absolutely is there, but there are a lot of question marks.
Okay, can I get one more?
One more.
And I promise.
Yeah, we'll do one more quick one.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
You have Julio Jones, Henry, Brown, Ferkser. Can Downing mimic what Arthur Smith did last year?
Green light. Why not? Why not? Who's to say that you can't? And Derrick Henry was asked this same thing. He said, well, we brought Arthur in at some point. You're always going to have a new offensive coordinator. You're always going to have new personnel. This is like having a new offensive coordinator is not a new concept in football. And I think Todd Downing knows that he has a massive challenge in front of him because what is everyone talking about with surrounding the Tennessee Titans? The offense.
That's right.
So he has a massive challenge, but who's to say he can't do it? I'm not going to say that.
I ain't going to say it either.
615-737-1025. We will get to your calls, your texts, all of your Titans thoughts, and also what is the weakest spot on the Tennessee Titans roster. We'll get Chris Sanders' thoughts, and we will get TD's thoughts from his most recent ESPN.com article. You are listening to Stillman & Company. We're streaming on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, and on the Game Nashville app. Stillman & Company is brought to you by TriStar Moving Company. TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Caroline Fenton joined by the one, the only, forever Titans wide receiver Chris Sanders.
What's up?
And we just got into a bit of Titans statements and if we agreed with them. Red light, green light, yellow light. And you asked me, can Todd Downing do with this Titans offense what Arthur Smith was able to do with last year's Titans offense? And I said green light 100% of what? Why not? Who's saying he can't? What would you give? Red light, yellow light, green light? Can Todd Downing do what Arthur Smith did?
I think he can. And the reason why I say I think he can is because look at who he has on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have Julio Jones, you have A.J. Brown, you got Ferkser, you got Evans, you got they got a slew of players. The key is just putting him in the right formations, in the right position to make plays.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what Arthur Smith did. I mean, he was so creative with what he did. So, I mean, if he just does that and keep it simple for the players and let them go out there and use their ability, I think it can be even better.
I think that's one key thing is don't do too much.
Just don't do too much.
Don't do too much. We saw that with, and I'll stem off on a quick hockey note, Chris, but we saw that, in my opinion, with John Hines, I think that was the ultimate downfall of the Predators in the playoffs, was John Hines did too much. He did too much with the lineup. He thought too much about it. He wanted to get cute with it. And although I credit him for trying to do something, I think that ultimately is what was the Predators' demise in the playoffs, and I would hate to see that replicated with the Titans. Let these guys do their thing. They're NFL vets. They are proven vets. Just look at their cards. Look at their stat sheet.
Yeah.
They can do it. Let them do it and be creative with it.
I remember for Christmas, my mom bought me this remote control, right? So what I did is I put the batteries in, and I just had the little remote control.
Uh-huh.
I didn't try to grab the car and try to make it go. All I did was just have the control and let the car go. That's kind of like what Downing has to do with the offense. It's just you got the car, you got all the parts.
Mm-hmm.
Just let them go. And I think the key is making sure they're in the right formation, make sure that they do what they're supposed to. And I think they're going to be successful on offense.
And there's one text that I want to get to.
Sure.
Well, 615-737-1025. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter texted in and said, "Prove me wrong. Carson Wentz is Victor Arvidsson." So Victor Arvidsson had 3 really solid years with the Predators, went on a cup run, and then got injured, came back, and just wasn't quite the same. I'm not necessarily going to disagree with the texter. Carson Wentz had a really good year. He had a splash of a year. And then after that, he started to decline. We haven't seen that 2017 Carson Wentz that we saw back then. And Victor Arvidsson getting traded to the Los Angeles Kings. That's an opportunity for him to start fresh, start something new, revive his career there. And this could possibly be the same thing with Carson Wentz. You mentioned how you were a little bit nervous about the fact that Carson Wentz could revive his career in Indianapolis.
I mean, sometimes you need a change of environment. I mean, if you look at Philadelphia, he was under scrutiny at everything he did, from the huddle, from in the locker room to where he acted, his body demeanor. So now you're going to the situation where there's no pressure. It's just go out there and perform. And, you know, Frank Wright, he really develops a lot of quarterbacks from the Indianapolis coach. So if he just builds them up with confidence and reminds them of 2017, that I think he's going to be successful, because, you know, you better believe it. You know, when you're dealing with an athlete that gets in this position, he's hungry. I mean, if somebody told me that I couldn't do nothing, I'm going to try to do everything in my power to show you that I can. And just like you know, before I got drafted, they said I wasn't going to get drafted. And then when I got drafted, they said, well, he might be on the practice squad and all this stuff. You don't think I hear that stuff?
You're always going to have the naysayers.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, if I have to jump over a building to catch the pass, if I have to go to concession standing by the defense drink so they'll let me catch the ball, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do everything in my power to go out there and make plays to show you that I am. 1995, all rookie team. Led the league in yards. 23 yards per catch. And the things like that. And the point that I was making is yeah, I'm glad you're talking about me, because it builds an edge. And I think with Wentz, man, I mean, just looking in his eyes when he was doing the interviews this year, he's got a different look. He doesn't have that little puppy dog look as woe as me. He's got a look that, you know, I'm like Rocky, I'm about to tear your head off. And that scares me, because if he plays a little bit like he did in 2017, that's a dangerous ball club.
I'm just not quite convinced.
I know.
I'll believe it when I see it. This is not a Santa Claus situation.
I agree with you 100%.
Coming up next, we will get into what Bill Barnwell thinks the weakest point of the Titans roster is. Do we necessarily agree? We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'll get to your calls, your texts, your thoughts on what you think the weakest point of the Titans roster is. But before we get into all of that, I will let you know that ESPN 94.9 is the home for Nashville Sounds baseball. Tonight, the Sounds take on the Louisville Bats, AAA affiliate of the Cincinnati Reds. Pre-game show with Jeff Hem starts at 6:50 p.m. and first pitch is at 7:05 p.m. Nashville Sounds baseball on ESPN 94.9, presented by 312 Pizza Company.
DeShone Kizer, he continues to impress. I like the way his decision-making showed and just, he was quick with the football, taking it to different areas of the field. He hit a couple guys. Mason Kinsey, it was a beautiful drop shot in the corner of the end zone. That was yesterday. And he fit one into a tight window to one of the tight ends. Oh, I can't remember his name off the top. Number 49. He's on a rookie tryout. Not tryout, but he's on undrafted free agent. But it was just, I like seeing Kizer play with some type of confidence because all the things that this man has been through and he's still standing, after 4 years of complete nonsense, some self-inflicted and others situational. He played well, and then for a guy who was stuck, as Pat O'Hara, the QB coach, said last year, he was stuck just like it was just the two of them practicing for most of the time he was with the Titans, so he didn't get to be with the team. So I was happy to see Kizer out there.
That was Teron Davenport on Titans backup quarterback DeShone Kizer, and Bill Barnwell put out an article on ESPN.com identifying the weakest points of some of the NFL rosters across the league. He mentions that the depth at quarterback behind Ryan Tannehill is the weakest part of the Titans offense.
I disagree.
Why?
The reason why I disagree, I think kicker is.
I would agree with you on that.
And
Kicker and tight end.
Yeah, I mean, you got Tucker McCain and Blake Heibel. How do you pronounce his name?
I don't know.
I mean, you got Tucker who kicked in 2019 from Missouri.
He's your Buckeye.
That's Blake. Yeah, Blake Heibel.
Blake Heibel.
Blake Heibel. Yeah, the Ohio State University. He was 28 for 35 last year. And then you have Tucker McCain from Missouri that only kicked 16 field goals. So that's a problem. And then last year you had Steven Gostkowski, am I pronouncing it right? Gostkowski, who struggled a little bit on extra points. So, you still have to address that. We need to get a kicker, a field goal kicker. I know we have Kern at the punting situation, but we need a field goal kicker that's consistent because some of the games we lost last year is because we missed extra points and we missed some field goals.
And you look at Stillman, who secured the AFC South for the Titans a couple years ago.
Right.
He just got signed by the Steelers. So you have that insurance, that safety net that's no longer there for the Titans.
Exactly.
I also wonder, could the Titans entertain re-signing Gostkowski to a year deal if they aren't totally impressed by their rookie kickers? Because I just think that sending a rookie out as your starting kicker, as your number one guy, that's overwhelming.
That's a lot of pressure.
I mean, you face a lot of pressure in college. You kick in those stadiums that are filled by 100,000 fans.
Yeah.
It's different in the NFL.
And he's the least most important person on the team. See, it's the least most important. But how can I say that? He's least, but he's still more important.
He's on the list of important.
Important, but you don't need him until we need him. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I'm trying to say it in a careful
Kicking
way.
is a situation where, nobody
knows you.
Everyone either loves you or hates you.
That's what I'm saying.
And there is no in between.
There's no in between. So, in practice, we don't even know he's there. I mean, if you look at practice, I think I was watching it with Tannehill, and he was messing with the kickers. Like, man, I didn't even know you guys were still on the team. But things like that. But we notice you when the kick is on the line, when you have to make it up to upright. So I just think that's the most important. I mean, I think that's one of the things that the Tennessee Titans are lacking. I understand the quarterback situation with Kizer. I think Woodside is still there.
Mm-hmm. Logan Woodside and Kizer.
Woodside is still there. But I think the weak spot right now is the kicking game. Now, I'm not excluding the punt. I'm talking about the field goals and extra points because if you look at last year, some of the games that the Tennessee Titans should have won is because of a missed field goal or a missed extra point. So those are important. It might not be big when we think about it, but in the long run, it becomes big when we start losing those games that you're supposed to win.
And in terms of the backup quarterback position, Jared and I had gone back and forth about DeShone Kizer and Logan Woodside. You look at Logan Woodside, who has much more experience underneath this Tennessee Titans offense. He's been around. He's paid his dues, and it kind of feels like he always gets the short end of the stick with Titans fans because he's been here and everyone wants to take his job from him.
Right.
But you look at DeShone Kizer, who has more NFL experience. He started games in Cleveland, and those games didn't necessarily go very well. But he does have starting quarterback position, so it's like you have to pick and choose your battles in terms of Logan Woodside and DeShone Kizer, and who would you choose as your backup quarterback if you are Mike Vrabel?
I would go with Woodside. And the reason why I go with Woodside is because he's been with this organization for a little bit. You had Kizer that came last year, but, he was in the protocol of the COVID, so he wasn't really being developed. But you think with Woodside, he's been with Pat O'Hara, the quarterback coach and things like that.
Yep.
What are they?
He was a quarantined quarterback last year, so didn't get a ton of exposure with the team, but was working out with the team. And I have to take that NFL experience over Tennessee Titans experience. I just think that's more valuable. I think that when you're, knock on all the wood, Ryan Tannehill goes down, you got to put your backup quarterback in. Who do you trust more? In those clutch situations, it's 3rd and 10. Who are you trusting more with the ball? A guy who's been with the organization or a guy who's been there before?
I think I will go with Woodside. I mean, and I agree with you. I agree with you to an extent. But I watched Kaiser when he was at Cleveland, and I know he played on a big stage with Notre Dame. But when I watched him in Cleveland, he just looked very uncomfortable. He didn't look like he did it in Notre Dame. But when he was at Cleveland, he was making a lot of mistakes. He was throwing a lot of interceptions. And I'm saying this respectful. I didn't see him as a good leader at that time. I'm not saying he can't be a good leader when he comes with the Tennessee Titans, but I just watched him on the sideline. I watched him throw 2 interceptions in the game, and I watched him just go to the side and be by himself. You can't do that in the NFL. And I think Woodside, I pronounced his name wrong. I think he knows a lot of the players, and I think he's never going to do that, even if he threw an interception. I just think he's more comfortable in the system because he's been around it a lot longer than Kaiser. I'm not saying Kaiser can't do it, but I just think I will be more comfortable with Woodside because he's been more in the system than Kaiser.
And I think that there is one factor to this backup quarterback situation that I think can put people at ease, and that is 2 words: Derrick Henry.
No doubt.
You put your backup quarterback in there, and I don't necessarily feel 100% confident about either Woodside or Kaiser. You really just got to keep all your fingers and toes crossed that Ryan Tannehill stays healthy. But if you do put your backup quarterback in that situation, give it to Derrick Henry. I think that's going to be the best support that you could possibly give a backup quarterback is just pass it off to Henry and run it.
Yeah, and I think too that you create the competition in camp. And the reason why I say create the competition because you're going to see who can do good under pressure. And then also you have these 4 preseason games. I know you played Tannehill the first quarter, but I'm playing Woodside and I'm playing Kaiser a ton.
Yes.
Because I want them to get experience. I want them to get reps. I want them to feel uncomfortable because when you're in preseason, guys are playing extra hard because they want to make the team. So if you're playing good against that type of intensity, and handle that pressure, you're going to be able to handle the pressure if Tannehill goes down. So, I think you create that competition big time.
And, we keep saying, you lean one more than the other, but you don't feel really great about both. That's not really a great position for the Titans to be in, especially whenever you are paying Julio Jones $15 million. It seemed like John Robinson was making a statement in signing Julio Jones that, hey, we're going for it. So if you put yourself in that situation that you're bringing in a wide receiver in Julio Jones and you're adding all of these things to your team, putting yourself in the situation that, Ryan Tannehill could get hurt, that always is a possibility for any and all quarterback, why would you leave your team vulnerable to a backup quarterback, either of them, that you don't feel great about? Do you think the Tennessee Titans are done adding to their roster?
That's a great question because if you look in the draft, I thought they were going to get a quarterback in the draft, and I don't think they did. Did they get a quarterback? I'm trying to remember. No, they didn't get a quarterback.
They didn't get a quarterback. They didn't get a tight end.
But I think that they feel comfortable with Kaiser. Because Pat O'Hara's really been working him. So if he's saying that he could definitely help us, so I think they felt comfortable with Kaiser and Woodside at that position. So, if you look at the teams that are successful in the NFL, when their top dog goes down and somebody steps on and keeps the ship moving, those are the teams that are going to be successful. So if the Tennessee Titans can do that, if Tannehill goes down, but you got to remember, you just said it about 2 minutes ago. We got number 22 in the backfield.
So, it makes you feel a lot better about your quarterback situation.
So me and you can play quarterback. I mean, I can put
me in, coach.
Put me in, coach. I can put the 1-bar face mask and just hand it like Joe Theismann and give it to Derrick Henry. So. It all depends, but it's all going to depend on what these guys do in preseason. And you got to play these guys a lot. You got to give them a ton of reps. You got to get them a ton of experience. You got to get them all these things and put them in an uncomfortable position. And if I'm Pat O'Hara or I'm the offensive coordinator, Todd Downing, I'm going with the person that handles the pressure like a leader. So that's what I'm watching for in preseason. How does he handle adversity? How does he handle throwing an interception? How does he take command in the in the huddle? How does he take command when he makes a mistake? What does he do when he does something wrong? Does he go to the sideline? Does he pout? Or does he call the offense again and say, okay, listen, I made a mistake. Let's look at the iPad and figure this thing out to get better on offense. So those are the things that I'm looking for. I'm not just looking for a guy that has great experience, that has some experience with Kaiser. Kaiser has experience. He played with Cleveland. But I'm looking for the intangibles. I'm looking for the tenacity. I'm looking for how he handles the blitz. I'm looking for, how does he take command of the huddle? I'm looking for those things. And if that guy is Woodside or that guy is Kaiser, then I'm going with the guy that's going to give me comfortability of making that decision.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. After the break, we'll get back to your calls, your texts, your thoughts on the backup quarterback position. And another area of concern that I have that isn't necessarily the backup quarterback or the kicker that we have yet to bring up. We will get to all of that next. Stillman and Company is streaming on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and the Game Nashville app.
With the kicker situation, how much have you liked what you've seen out of Tucker McCann and the rookie Hallbile? And are you confident going into training camp that the battle could end up being between those two?
Well, that's where the battle's at now, Terry. And there's not really much of a battle. There's no rush. We have to put them into situations and evaluate them, a lot more in training camp and in preseason. But they're both working hard, and we're excited to see where that competition leads. And then we'll have to make a decision at that point in time if that's what's best for the team and one of those guys moving forward. But everything that we've seen thus far, those guys are continuing to improve and work with the timing and the operation with Morgan and Brett.
That was Titans head coach Mike Vrabel. I mean, it's just a classic Vrabel answer.
That's
Vrabel
hilarious.
answers just crack me up sometimes.
There's no competition.
We were talking in the last segment about some areas of the Titans roster that may be their weak points. We mentioned kicker.
Mm-hmm.
2 guys coming in as rookies from Missouri and the Ohio State University, who the Titans don't feel great about. So are you sending a rookie out on the field to kick the field goals? I guess we will see. We don't necessarily know what the Titans are doing adding to the roster. But another area of concern that Bill Barnwell pointed out was the depth behind Ryan Tannehill at the backup quarterback position. And we will go to your phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you have a thought on the backup quarterback, the kicking position. But we will go to Adam.
So I'm actually glad you guys are talking about it, because as a season ticket holder, I've been super pumped up and optimistic, and we're going 16-0 or 17-0. And now that you've put this in my head, I feel like if Tannehill gets hurt, we're done. We're the Jaguars, because it's Logan Woodside. I mean, if you remember the Billy Volek thing, Titans experience means nothing. That guy, I mean, he didn't even get a chance to play because he looked so bad. He only had Titans experience. So, and Derrick Henry, I pretend like he could never get hurt, but I don't understand why they don't have enough competition. I wouldn't even know who the backup running back is. I have no idea, and I'm a season ticket member. So, but I feel like there's not enough competition at either of those 2 important spots.
Thank you for your call, Adam. And we are so sorry to burst your 16-0 bubble. So sorry to maybe present some harsh realities, but I don't think that the Titans are necessarily the Jaguars without Ryan Tannehill. We mentioned in the last segment, you can throw me in the quarterback position, and I will give it right to Derrick Henry, and he will do what he needs to do with it. So it is an area of concern because there isn't necessarily a guy that you would entrust the Titans offense with behind Ryan Tannehill, but there are options. There's Logan Woodside, who has been with the Titans organization, who knows this offense, knows this team, has created relationships with the rest of the offense and the rest of the team. And then you have Deshaun Kaiser, who started 15 games, I want to say, in Cleveland. And although they weren't successful games, they were games. And he was in the pocket in Cleveland, and he was able to start those games. So, no, you don't feel great about it. And I personally would not be surprised if the Titans brought in maybe a little bit more of a veteran quarterback to fill in that backup role.
I think they will. I mean, Mike Vrabel is always evaluating players, and he's always finding a way to make the team better. But I just got to thinking, I mean, listen to the caller. I mean, look at if I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's going to happen. But what if Derrick Henry did get hurt? I mean, look at who they have backing him up: McNichols, Blasingame, Evans, and Hill from Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Do any of those guys scare you?
Not at all.
Not at all. I mean, Blasingame, McNichols got a little speed, but he can't carry the load like Henry can. So we got a lot of things to make sure that doesn't happen. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. I mean, we can't make sure that Henry goes some insurance with Tannehill and Henry. If those guys go down, the backup position is scarce. I mean, and if you look at the teams that win in the NFL, they have great depth. And if the Tennessee Titans are going to go to the next level of the league, then they got to make sure they have good depth. I mean, even looking at the tight end position, you got Ferkser, you got Swain, you got Pickney, you got Hudson. Mm-hmm. Who are those guys? Mm-hmm.
Don't look at me. Don't look at me.
I mean, you just don't know. I'm not saying those guys don't play. It's just names that we haven't heard.
Right.
So,
which doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing.
And I'm being funny, but those are names we haven't heard. I mean, we heard of McNichols, but we heard of Blasingame. We heard of Evans, a little bit of Evans. He scored a touchdown last year. Mm-hmm. But Brian Hill, we don't know anything about Brian Hill from Atlanta, unrestricted free agent. So we just don't know. So we got to cross our fingers and hope those guys don't get hurt.
Let's go to your phone lines. Driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We're taking all your calls, all your texts on your Titans thoughts. Matt from Camden texts in and says, you can't judge Kaiser on what he did in Cleveland. That Cleveland team was awful. I honestly can't believe Kaiser gives you the best chance to win. or honestly believe Kaiser does give you the best chance to win. And that's true. That Cleveland team was absolutely awful.
They were bad. They were bad, but I'm looking for the intangibles. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
But it's more than just he played bad. How did he handle the situation? That's what I'm looking at. How did he handle when he threw an interception? I watched him on the sidelines. I watched him when he was on the sidelines. He stayed by himself. He didn't want to talk to anybody. I'm watching his demeanor because when it comes crunch time, just say we're in a war and it comes to crunch time and you're over there pouting and we're trying to save lives. I'm going to I want a guy that says, I'm going to handle this adversity and I'm going to walk with you through it. Those are the intangibles that I'm looking at. Everybody knows he has a great ability. I understand he has a great ability. He played great in Notre Dame. He even played with my son. He threw my son a touchdown. But I'm looking for the intangibles when things don't go right. Look at Tannehill. When things didn't go right, look at his demeanor. His demeanor is like, hey, guys, that's on me. I made a bad mistake. Hey, A.J. Brown, I need you to cut this route up. Hey, Julio Jones, I need you to do such and such.
Let's go back out there and let's not intercept the ball. Let's move on from it.
There you go. That's what I'm looking at.
Do you think that's something that you get from experience? Or is it just something you have?
It's a combination of both. Sometimes you get it from experience because the thing about it is leaders are not born. Leaders are taught. And the reason why they taught is by going through adversity. Look at Michael Jordan, probably one of the best leaders of all time. The reason why he's one of the best leaders of all time is because he got cut from his ninth grade team. So now it built an edge of understanding that I got to play my game and I got to bring others with me. And that's what you look and you see in the leader. So you kind of look at it in that situation.
Let's go back to your phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter texts in, the Canadian Titan says, I'm on record as concerned about the backup quarterback position. But
You opened up a can of worms.
Yeah, no, seriously. I'm so sorry to shake up all of Titans Nation out there. But I'm just the messenger. He said, but let's go somewhere else on the offense. Taylor Lewan went down last season, and though we still went 11-5, his loss was really felt. With no true starter on the right side, I wonder if the Titans should kick the tires on a Mitchell Schwartz. Is the tackle position good enough or deep enough right now? I think that's a valid concern. Taylor Lewan is also recovering from an ACL. So if Taylor Lewan isn't healthy, who fills in that situation? Dylan Radins, when he was drafted, people can say, okay, he can play all five positions. True. He can play anywhere on the offensive line. But are you going to put all your eggs in Dylan Radins' basket, a rookie who played in the FCS, who only played, how many games last year? One, two? Not very many.
Right.
No shade to the FCS, wonderful conference, but just the sheer volume of competition that you would see in the FCS is a lot different than what you would see in the NFL.
Oh, no doubt.
So Dylan Radins, while having him, I think is a wonderful asset for the Titans to be able to fill in wherever need be. You can't count on him right away, right now, to be a playmaker. And Taylor Lewan's absence was felt, to the texter's point.
Yeah, I don't think Radins is going to start this year because you have Kendall Lamb that they got from Cleveland, the unrestricted free agent. So he's had some experience and he played with Cleveland. So I just think that with Radins, I think he's going to come in here and learn and understand how to do things. But it still gives you a little bit of depth. And you got to remember, we still got some dogs on the line. We have Saffold. We have who else we got? We got Saffold and we got Quisenberry and we got, I don't even know how to pronounce the name, Delaro Christian. From somewhere. I mean, see, you scaring me. And it's some guys that we don't know. I'm trying to make it sound good, but we still.
You did a good job. You did a good job.
But here's the thing. Here's the positive thing about what's going on. We went through this situation last year where we had injuries and guys move in different positions. How many yards did Henry get?
Over 2,000.
Over 2,000. So you're not shabby if you putting guys in there, like Quisenberry playing different positions, and you still get a running back getting 2,000 yards. And I think sometimes we don't think it's a good offensive line because it's not they're not sexy names. But those guys got Henry 2,000 yards. Henry couldn't have got 2,000 yards by himself, but he did it with an offensive line where they were switching around. So, and that's the one thing that Mike Vrabel always preached. I got to get guys that are versatile players. And don't forget, we forgot about a guy. We forgot about Ben Jones and Nate Davis. I mean, those are guys that are pillar on your offense. But then just going back to what the caller said, how was Lewan going to respond after a knee injury? We had the situation with Conklin when he went to Cleveland. Conklin started out slow, so they opted out of his fifth year option. But then later on, he started getting better. Can that be the same situation with Taylor Lewan? He may start off a little slow, but once he gets confidence, can he play a little better?
And the texter brought up a good point, and maybe not a ton of depth at offensive line. And another area on the offense, while we talk about how stacked this Titans offense is, I worry about the tight end position.
I agree 100%.
You have Anthony Ferkser, who is looking like will be the starting tight end.
Mm-hmm.
From what we've seen from Anthony Ferkser in the past, it doesn't give me a ton of confidence that he can be that number one tight end guy.
But see, I think the one thing that we look at is we look at John New on how versatile he was. I mean, he can
I think
run.
the Titans fans were very spoiled.
And
with
very
John New.
spoiled. And then you had Delaney Walker, who guys that are so athletic and guys give nightmare matchups. Now you have Ferkser and you have Swan, you have Pigney, and you have Tommy Hudson. And I just think that that's going to rely on Todd Downing to make sure he put these guys in the right formations. I mean, because if you look at the Tennessee Titans, they're basically in 11 personnel and 12 personnel. And 11 personnel is one back, one tight end, and 3 wide receivers. And also, it's the 12 personnel. It's one back, 2 tight ends, and 2 wide receivers. So when you're in that 12 package, that means they're 8 times out of 10, they're running the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're going to do it first, because I looked at Ferkser when he was in that tight end U at Lipscomb.
Yeah.
He's getting big. I mean, he is huge. His arms are big. He's still
Good.
swift at running routes. So he's understanding that he might not catch a lot of balls, but he understands when you got 22 in the backfield, he's got to block and really, get that defensive end.
We'll go back to your phones, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and one texter texted in and says, "This is coming from a Clevelander living in Tennessee. I'd rather have Blake Bortles backing up Tannehill than Kaiser."
No. Ooh, that's...
It is a Fireball Hot Take Friday, so thank you for the texter for participating. I understand why Cleveland Brown fans would totally have a bad taste in their mouth about Deshaun Kaiser, because this record in Cleveland wasn't great. But, again, that Cleveland Browns team wasn't bad just because of Deshaun Kaiser.
That was a bad Cleveland team.
It was a bad Cleveland
It was a
team.
bad. I mean, there was no camaraderie. Guys are fussing amongst each other. Guys are worrying about if I have a bigger watch in the game, and I mean, silly stuff like that. There was no all that goofy stuff. I got the good pair of shoes. There was no commitment of winning, but I still watched the body language of players.
Mm-hmm.
And if you watch the body language of a player, they're going to tell you what this person's made of. So if I throw an interception and I don't want to talk to anybody, if I throw an interception and my coach is trying to coach him and I walk away, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that he can't change that, but that is a problem. You have to be coachable. And I think he's coachable. I think he's going to be a great asset to this team. But if he can fix that, I think he can be a good asset by being a backup. But if he continues to do that, I don't know.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, we'll have Carolines. We'll make our picks for today for the weekend. But before we do that, I will let you all know that single-day tickets for the big game Music City Grand Prix, scheduled for August 6th through 8th, go on sale this Tuesday, July 6th, beginning at 10 a.m., with the majority of the reserved grandstands already sold out. A limited amount of single-day reserved grandstand and general admission tickets will be available for each of the 3 days of the Urban Racing Festival featuring NTT IndyCar Series. This Tuesday, get your tickets by visiting musiccitygp.com/tickets. That's musiccitygp.com/tickets. Ticketmaster.com, or call the Titans ticket office at 615-555-4650. You are listening to Stillman & Company. We're streaming on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, and on the Game Nashville app. Is delivered by TriStar Moving. TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Caroline Fenton, joined by the one, the only Chris Sanders, filling in for Jared Stillman today. So we've got some betting picks for the day. Did you come prepared with your picks? Well, that's all right. You just tell me if you agree. So without further ado, let's do it. Here are Caroline's.
Get in on the action. Put the money on the mahogany. What's on tap on the sports books? It's time to break it all down with Caroline's. Here on Stillman and Company. On ESPN 102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
First, we've got some Stanley Cup playoff finals tonight. We've got Tampa Bay Lightning and the Montreal Canadiens. And if you have been listening, you know that I have bet. I've picked the Montreal Canadiens. I bet against the Montreal Canadiens so many times. I never thought that they could do it. And I feel like I'm not alone in the hockey world thinking that the Montreal Canadiens would not end up in the Stanley Cup finals. I picked them in game one, and of course they lost. So you know what, Montreal Canadiens, I'm picking you against you yet again. I'm actually going to take Tampa Bay on the money line, minus 132. Not as steep as I thought it was going to be, but I think Tampa Bay takes this in 4 or 5. I mean, they are a big boy team with a big boy forwards and a really good netminder in Nikita Kucherov. So I'm going to take Tampa Bay. Pulled out a 3-1 lead, and it was a little close in game 2. Tampa Bay ended up pulling it out at the very end of the game. It was tied 1-1 for majority of the game, but Tampa Bay is the better team. I think they know what they need to do to get it done, and I think that they want to get it done early so they can rest before the Stanley Cup playoffs. So give me the Lightning.
I didn't even know Tampa Bay was. I didn't even know hockey was still on.
Yeah, it's Stanley Cup Finals.
Okay, I'm going to go.
Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals. We got Montreal Canadiens, Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa Bay is on the money line, minus 132. Canadiens plus 112, and the puck line is 1.5.
I am going with Tampa Bay because they won the Super Bowl.
That's fair. That's very fair. And I'm also getting a little bit sick and tired about the city of Tampa Bay winning everything. I mean, they won the Cup last year. They won the Super Bowl. When do we get our wins?
Yeah, I think it's going to come this year.
You think so?
Yep.
That's your hot take for the day?
That's my hot take, baby.
All right. We also have a little bit of basketball tonight. We got, or tomorrow night, actually. But we got Milwaukee Bucks, Atlanta Hawks, and the Bucks were able to pull it out without Giannis. The Hawks were able to pull it out without Trae Young the night before. And I kind of want to get your perspective on this, Chris Sanders. This idea of the NBA superstars. So we've seen a lot of NBA superstars go down in the playoffs. Chris Paul, not an injury necessarily, but COVID protocol. We saw Kawhi Leonard go down, and the Clippers were able to snag a few wins against the Suns without him. The Suns ended up winning the series, but Chris Paul made it a little bit, not Chris Paul, Paul George. Excuse me. Paul George was able to pull it out for the Clippers, and we saw Giannis go down. We saw Trae Young go down in this Bucks-Hawks series. And they were still able to pull out wins without their superstars. Do you think the superstar makes the team in the NBA? Can a team win a championship without their number one guy?
I think they can. I mean, if you have depth. And you know, if you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, the reason why they got ousted out is because there's 2 superstars got hurt and they didn't have any depth. So you got to have depth. Yeah, you got to have a superstar. And you got to have that guy that has that it factor. But also you have to have some role players. If you don't have no role players and guys not scoring when your top dogs are in there, you're going to lose. And we just saw a perfect example of that with the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, absolutely. For the game tomorrow, I'm going to take Bucks on the money line plus 124. They looked good without Giannis. We don't know exactly where the injuries stand with Trae Young and Giannis Antetokounmpo, but the Bucks looked good. The Hawks looked good the game before, and it really kind of feels like a pick-em. But I'm rocking with Milwaukee tomorrow.
I'm going with the Hawks. And
Why?
I know a friend that's kind of experiencing what's going on with the Atlanta Hawks down there. He said it's crazy. He said it's bananas.
I'm sure.
He said it's like people losing their minds. So I think even though they lost last night or the night before, I think they're going to muster up a win and actually win the series. Let's go get it.
Let's get it. We've also got some baseball tonight. This game's actually on in just a few minutes. Dodgers, Nationals. Give me the Nationals on the money line plus 104. Max Scherzer is on the mound for the Nats. And really, it kind of feels like the whole grand scheme of baseball has completely shifted ever since pitchers have been held so highly to that standard of, no foreign substances whatsoever. But give me the Nats on the money line, plus 104.
I'm going to Nationals because their name is cooler.
It is, yeah, that's true.
I mean,
That's
Dodgers,
true.
Nationals, you can put some stank on it. But yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You know what? I need to start watching baseball again.
Well, I'll get you into it. I'll
Let's
try the
do
best
it.
that I can.
Okay, I'm going to try.
I'll try the best that I can. Those are our picks for tonight. But today is a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Chris Sanders, you came prepared with your hot take for the day. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
I want you to go first.
Okay. My hot take for the day, we mentioned name, image, and likeness earlier in the show and how it could possibly impact college football, college sports in general. My hot take for the day is that this new name, image, and likeness rule in college sports will be the eventual demise of the college football dynasties. I think that you are going to start seeing more recruits go away from the Clemsons, the Ohio States, and the Alabamas of the world, and they're going to start going places where there may be more money thrown at them, because you look at Alabama, and every recruit that's being recruited is going to be a 5-star. Every recruit that comes in there is going to have money thrown at them by local brands, whatever it may be. And I think that you're going to start seeing a little bit more division of wealth when it comes to recruits. And I think that eventually will be the demise of dynasties. And I think that you're going to see a lot more shakeup in college football, especially, but in college sports in general, because there's going to be a change in recruiting. There's going to be a change in the way that they do things. And I think that is going to cause a change in the outcome of the seasons.
I just think the NCAA is definitely going to have a game plan. If they don't have a game plan to make it right and have a vision, it's going to be a total mess. I mean, it's going to sound good with the athlete, or not the athlete, but the student athlete getting paid. But what's the game plan to make sure the kid is successful? I mean, that's going to be the key. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, but I'm excited to see what happens.
I'm excited to see what happens as well. I think that it's, right now we look at it because it's all unknown. So we don't know what's going to happen. And we, our minds can travel all of these crazy places, but we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. But it's going to be interesting to see how things play out. And I think that 5-10 years down the road, we're going to look back and be like, what were we so worried about?
Sure? You sure?
I mean, you look at other things, and, legalizing marijuana. We've talked about this a lot, 5, 10, 15 years ago, that may have felt like such a taboo subject. But now we look at it and it's like, not a big deal.
And speaking of, marijuana, that's my fireball hot take. I'm going with
Give it to me.
Sha'Carri Richardson. And the reason why I'm not upset that the situation happened, I'm upset with the people that are focusing on her running as opposed to getting her help. That fires me up, because we make it a selfish thing and we're making this a race thing, and I don't think that's fair. It's a situation where she broke the rules. She broke the rules, but we focusing so much on her not running in the Olympics as opposed to focusing on her getting some help. Because the statement that I read earlier, it was focusing on that she's hurting. So if she's hurting, just going to the Olympics will ease the pain for a second, but how is she going to handle life when the situation faces her again? So that's my fireball hot take about that situation.
Well, Chris Sanders, we appreciate you
kicking me
so
off
much.
already?
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. That is going to do it for us today. Everyone, enjoy your 4th of July weekend. Stay safe. Enjoy celebrating our country's independence. Moneyline is up next.